Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This for UFC 310. Producer Jared is on the stairs. Cody Saftik is on the line. In this episode, and all episodes of the Dogger Pass podcast are brought to you by CoolBet. Use promo code DOGORPASS when making a new account to get a match up to $200 on your first deposit. Just have to roll it over 3 times and the money is yours. Probably one of the best rollovers you could possibly ask for in the world of sports betting. Cody, it's good to be back. 2 more cards and the year's over here.
Yeah, it honestly feels like the year's gone by super quickly, but here we are, the last 2 cards. This is the last pay-per-view of the year, and then there's a Colby Covington fight next week. Maybe. We'll see if it actually comes to fruition. You never know in these situations, but yeah, last 2 shows, so all we can do is try to hammer out on a high note and go strong. 14 fights on this pay-per-view, and Paul, the prelims, just as good as the main card. This is a very, very fine offering, so we should be able to find a couple good spots we like anyways.
100%, yeah. Jared always asks me, he's like, is this a good card? And I think there's probably like an 80% clip where I'm like, no. And I'm like, this week I was just like, it's a great card. And like, they lost a bunch of fights, but they did a pretty good job filling it in as they could. I don't know if it's going to do gangbuster pay-per-views, but I'm not getting any of the money for how many pay-per-views they sell. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of good spots, and we have 14 fights. So, pitter patter, let's get at her. Alexandre Pantoja takes on Kai Asakura in the main event. Pantoja minus 263 favorite at CoolBet. Asakura can be had for plus 215. Pretty rare that you have, the Japanese champion, a rising champion, coming over, making his debut for the belt. But obviously, Bilal Muhammad dropped out against Shavkat Rakhmonov, and they needed a main event, and Pantoja stepped up to the plate, took him on. I struggle to get away from picking Pantoja here. I've already bet him by submission as well. 1, Asakura hasn't went the full 5 that I'm aware of. 2, I know he hits really hard. He's broken jaws. Like, it's going to be dangerous, all of that type of stuff. But, like, Pantoja's been getting takedowns when he wants the takedowns, and whether sometimes he looks a little bit tired, a little weathered later in fights, but he still hangs around. The guy's like a dog on the bone. If he fights this fight smart, I expect him to be shooting early and often and hopefully securing a submission. I'm interested potentially in like Pantoja late round props, like round 4, round 5, but Pantoja by sub official pick, and I've got some money on it. What's your take here?
Yeah, okay, so listen, right off the get-go, it's a flyweight fight, and you're paying minus 263 for the A side. So you're never going to like that because it's 125 pounds, and you can kind of expect the unexpected. But Kai Asakura is not getting this fight because he's the second best flyweight in the world. He's getting this fight because it's flyweight, and there's no challengers yet again. So we've actually seen a similar situation back when Demetrius Johnson was the champ. You'll remember that legendary run of his, Paul, but he defended his title against John Moraga. He defended his title against Chris Carriasso. He fought Tim Elliott for the title. Tim Elliott actually won Ultimate Fighter comeback season in order to get a automatic title fight off tough versus DJ. That's how desperate they were for champions. He fought Wilson Hayes. He fought Ray Borg. Hell, even after they trimmed to 1 championship, he fought Yuya Wakamatsu in his very next fight, and then Tatsumitsu Wada, and then Danny Kingad. There's just it's a barren wasteland at 125. Once you beat the second and third best guys, there's nobody. And that's not to say that there's not good 125ers. It's that once they have that shot at the title, you can't give them another one. You start to get kind of lost on options. Muhammad Mokaev, they should have kept him for no other reason than they could have just thrown him in there. Was he ready? Hells no. But you can just throw him in that spot because he's got a long, reputable background, a long winning streak, and you don't have these challengers. When he fought Steve Erceg the last time out, Alexandre Pantoja, it's the defending flyweight champion versus the number 6 guy ranked in the division at that time. And Erceg, even though he's ranked number 6, he gave him a hell of a fight, Paul. Why? Because it's flyweight. They're going to be mad scrambling, tons of takedowns, tons of strikes landed, probably go 5 rounds. A lot of concussive blows along the way, probably some blood. It's going to be a crazy back and forth fight. That's what most of them are. So you never want to pay too much for it. We just saw he's a big favorite over Erceg. And Usyk blows it in the 5th round of a fight he's about to win. That's the competitive nature of the 125-pound division. So with Kai Asakura, like you're saying, they need a headliner. Bilal Muhammad falls off. They need something. It's a pay-per-view. Let's just throw in a title fight. But it's as much that as it is, we don't have anybody to fight Pantoja. So we're going to sign a Japanese champion who's 31 years old. He's not some young, hot prospect, the next big thing. We're going to sign him, bring him over, and give him an instant title shot. Now, when have you even really seen that? Back in the day, they signed Jake Shields to come over from Strikeforce because they wanted him to fight George. Well, he had to fight in the UFC, win, then he got to fight George. They had brought in Ben Askren in the trade for Demetrius Johnson. He still had to fight Robbie Lawler, and then he had to fight George Masvidal, and then he fought Damian Maia, and then they cut him. The Reiner DeRider, right, just got signed the other day, the one championship guy. He fights Gerald Mearshart, and now he's going to fight Kevin Holland. They almost never give guys an instant title shot just because you're the champion in another organization. If a Bellator champion came over, do you think he'd get an instant title shot? Like, maybe he deserves it, but I just don't think he would. Dave Branch, remember Dave Branch? Made a couple $1 million for World Series of Fighting, was a dual champ at 85 and 205. Came to the UFC, he's a prelim fighter. So the point being is that flyweight's a little bit different. There's nobody in the division. They're a lot more willing to play ball. And so right off the get-go, I think Pantoja is the best. If not, maybe there's guys out there that can beat him, but he's probably either the top or a top 3 flyweight in the world universally. Whereas Kai Asakura is a guy that's a top 3 guy in Japan fighting the talent that he was fighting down there. So it's night and day. Okay, so a couple other things. Kai Asakura hasn't made 125 pounds in 7 years. So he has fought at 125 back in the day, but for the most part, he's been fighting in Japan, which they're a little bit more, if you're a 25er, just fight at 135. He's fought a lot of guys, including Kyoji Horiguchi and all them, Demetrius Johnson, sorry. They'll fight at 135 despite beating flyweights. But all the same, he's 31 years old. He now has to cut down to a weight class that he hasn't had to do in 7 years, come all the way from Japan. It's a tough fight. It's a tough fight, and for that reason, I'm picking Pantoja. The money line would suggest that most people are picking Pantoja. If you listen to most critics, I feel like the line is Pantoja, but there's still problems here. And that's the last thing we'll discuss. We'll move on. My pick's Pantoja, but how could we run into troubles? Why not put Pantoja on the top line, which we're not going to do? Well, one, okay, Usyk gave a lot of problems to Pantoja because he's 5'8" with like a 69-inch reach. Like, he's 3 inches taller than Pantoja, who's 5'5", and a big body like that over 5 rounds. He's going to land the harder shots. It's going to be hard to hold down. It's problematic. Well, Asakura is also 5'8", and though he's not nearly as dense or physically as strong as Steve Usyk, it's going to give him some problems. You mentioned the fact that he does have some knockout power. He has knocked out some quality guys, including Kyoji Horiguchi back in the day, coming off a decent win over Juan Archuleta in his last fight. If he hits you, it's going to be a problem. But he's a little bit not the most physically gifted guy. He's not going to just pressure forward. He's using those long range weapons. And I think if you just go into the clinch, score takedowns, he'll give you the back. He'll give you the opportunities. He'll fight the kind of style that Pantoja should like to fight, which is talented striker with a weakened ground game. You look at the key points in his career, I guess, would be he's got a win over Kyoji Horiguchi where he just knocks him out right away. Then they run it back and he loses. He's got a win over Manel Kopp. Then they run it back and he loses. Both times he rematched, he got knocked out. He beat Hiromasa Agakubo, who was on the same season as the Ultimate Fighter as Bryce Mitchell, right? A talented Japanese fighter. The first time he fight him, he just bombs him out with soccer kicks to the face. Bit of an early stoppage considering it was soccer kicks to the face, but all the same, he beats him. The second time, it's a one-night tournament. So given he did fight another opponent that same night for 3 rounds, but the second time he fights Agakubo is just able to take him down. Takes it down in the first round, mounts him at the end of the first round. Second round, he loses, albeit he's coming forward. He's landing the overhand right repeatedly. And then in the third round, again, he scores a late takedown. I think he seals this thing up, wins the decision. He's lost all 3 times he's rematched a guy. Like the first time he fights him, he's got some beautiful brilliance, beautiful straight left, power in both hands, quick on his feet, agile guy. He can catch you off guard, but his prime appears to be 2021, about 3 years ago. And since then, it's like guys have figured out, you take him down. Now he's coming off a quality win over Juan Archuleta his last time out, but Juan a lot older now, fighting almost exclusively in Japan as a guy being brought in. And one took him down in the first round, had a lot of good success, took his back, right? Second round also does take him down early and then kind of gasses, and Asakura lines him up a beautiful shot, knocks him out. The guy's got a lot of power. This is MMA. Anybody can win. Puncher's chance. Yes, your Pantoja bet could get blown out of the water this weekend for no other reason than he gets caught. But if we're looking for styles make fights, if we're looking for who's the better fighter, the higher ranked guy, more experience, the better style, who wins more often than not, it's Alexandre Pantoja. So again, for that reason, he's my pick this week.
All right. We move on to the co-main event. We got Shavkat Rakhmonov taking on Garry. Rakhmonov, a minus 357 favorite. Garry can be had for plus 285. It's the two top rising prospects, Cody, in the welterweight division. People kind of saying these two guys are the future of the division. They're 33-0 combined record here. Hell of a fight. And I guess the odds makers are saying Rakhmonov's significant favorite. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, with Rakhmonov, I think you got to look at the fact that unbeaten, but fought in a lot of good guys, always a colossal favorite. And then he's pretty much done everything you've asked from him. His UFC run includes choking out Cowboy Oliveira, who was still something at the time, in the first round. Michel Prazeres, you know how hardened that guy is, chokes him out in the second round. Carlson Harris, super serviceable. And for the record, Oliveira, Prazeres, and Carlson Harris are all BJJ black belts. He finishes them all respectively in one round, and 2 rounds. Neil Magny chokes Neil Magny out in the second round. Another BJJ black belt. The Jeff Neal fight, there's an argument there. There's an argument there that there's a lull to his striking game. Like when he's taking guys down, he's able to dominate them. He snatches up your neck. It's goodbye. And his striking is good. But at some times he does maybe get a little bit lost standing in front of his opponents. Neil gives him an excellent second round. Neil actually gives him probably the best fight he's had so far. But ultimately, he goes out there and he does the same thing he does to everybody else, which is find the neck, find the chin, does exactly what he has to do. Gets a third round submission, rear naked choke. The Stephen Thompson fight, there's a clear path of victory there to utilize, and he's able to utilize it like nothing. There's nothing that I don't like about this guy, other than maybe if you caught him in a lull standing, you could beat him. Garry, meanwhile, it seems more like he's a product of the hype. What you hear from him, it all sounds really good. Like he's undefeated, he's a good-looking guy, got a really good-looking wife, nice-looking family. He's got everything going for him. He's a hateable character, and he's playing a similar role to Conor McGregor, where it's like his life is so great, so much better than yours, and he's got money, and he ain't fighting anybody ranked below him, and he's claiming he's going to be the first 3-weight world champion, and that he thinks he can win the 205 title, only weighing 195. I mean, I don't really got to go all the way to light heavyweight. I just weighed in at 195 and beat those guys too. So does he actually believe in that? Because if he does, delusion, right? I'm not betting on a guy that's got mental health issues. And if he doesn't believe it, then again, it's just a show. It's a show to get paid. And this game is partly talent and results, and it's partly getting paid. If he goes out and he talks a big game and he wins, he's a big trophy hunter at this point. He beats Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's cashing in on these $1 million paydays for that big fight because he gives him the leverage. If he loses to Shavkat Rakhmonov, not really the end of the world. That guy's going to go fight for a title and probably win it. So losing to him, it wouldn't be that bad. Initially, they had him booked against Joaquin Buckley, and he wanted nothing to do with it because it's a very dangerous fight as well. And losing to Joaquin Buckley,
sends you way
takes
down
the shine
to
off you.
You'd still be top 10, but you're not. Yeah, you're not a title contender if you're losing to Joaquin Buckley.
Yeah, and it's one thing to be like, hey, man, I lost to George St. Pierre. Who cares? I lost to Khabib Nurmagomedov. I lost to John Jones. Like when you're losing to, not saying Shavkat's there yet, but when you lose to just the best guys, there's an easy out. When you're losing to a fringe top 5 guy, a fringe top 10 guy with a big mouth like Buckley that you probably should win that fight, but you lose. Tons of pressure, no huge reward. If you beat him, there's not still that dangling $1 million payday. So the payoff for victory is not that great. Payoff, the downside for losing, pretty astronomical, right? So he's smart enough to realize I would rather fight the guy that's going to smoke me out of the water because win or defeat, it's better for me. So I'll give him props to that. Talks a great game, has this great image, has a great character. If you like him, great. If you don't, great. It's good for business. And I'm going to respect that and I'm going to respect the hustle. Again, it just comes down to like the results of what we've seen on paper. And whereas Shavkat's fighting a bunch of good guys, as we outlined, and looking very good against those good guys, Gary's not so much the case. Like his very first fight against Jordan Williams, he's losing the round until 1 second left in the round. Jordan Williams just gets a little reckless because he heard the 10-second clapper, walks into a counter. But like prior to that, Williams is marching him backwards, outworking him, outlanding him. Yeah, the guy's not some super refined high-level striker. And he's not some super refined high-level grappler. He's good in those areas, but I just don't find he's world-class in those areas, whereas Rakhmonov certainly does look the part. Anyways, beyond that, he goes the distance with Darian Weeks. He went the distance with Gabe Green. He got knocked down by Song Kanon. Smokes Daniel Rodriguez, which is a fringe 20 or 15 guy. Beats Neil Magny, but he went to decision with him. Didn't smoke him like Rakhmonov did, although he hobbled him up pretty good and kicked his ass. Don't get me wrong. Jeff Neal fight. Damn, dude, that was a really close fight. Wins a split decision. And then his fight with Michael Page, I had him bet heavy against Michael Page because I'm starting to not buy the hype, but this guy will beat Michael Page because his striking's good and his grappling would just be much better. Oh my God. He's got bad ring IQ too. Like, yes, he wins. Yes, he wins on the basis of his grappling. Yes, that was a good in-round adjustment, but this guy's not that physically strong. He's not that athletically gifted. He's not that smart in there. He's just, a Cage Warriors champ. Like, he's a European level, solid European level fighter that on the international scene would have to get match made wise. And because he's big on, I ain't fighting anybody ranked below me, eventually he's talked himself into a situation where he's just going to have to go out there and cash the check. And McGregor, when McGregor was humble and he was letting these guys come to him a little bit, he was the best, man. He was one of the best. But then as he got to, no, I'm not fighting these guys. I'm only fighting those guys, and chasing the big fight and talking the smack to Khabib and talking the smack to Poirier, you saw the success wasn't quite there. So I got Rakhmonov to win this fight. Wide line? Yeah, sure, wide line. But I just feel like, and a 5 round makes me a tad bit worried. 3 rounds, I think Rakhmonov's got him all day. 5 rounds, there's a few more intangibles, but not enough for me to switch the pick. So I'm going to take Shavkat to get the job done and hand Ian Garry his first career loss.
My only concern here with Shavkat is like those last 2 fights for him. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson went 1 for 5 on takedowns against Wonderboy, and then against Jeff Neal, he was 0 for 4. And that Jeff Neal fight got a little bit dicey. Don't get me wrong, Shavkat was able to put up big volume, and like it seems like when push comes to shove, when everything's out on the line and things are starting to look a little bit greasy for him, he snatches up that neck in round 3 in that Jeff Neal fight, right? So the guy's an absolute dog, and he's got the killer in him. I don't know if I can say the same thing for Garry. The pick will be Rakhmonov, but there is concerns there that, like, if his wrestling or his grappling doesn't work here and this turns into a kickboxing match, I can see a world where Ian Garry can, like, outpoint him and maybe just have more gas in rounds 4 and 5 and pull this thing off. So at minus 357, I really don't know if there's much meat on the bone here. Like, if they fought 10 times, does Rakhmonov win 8 of them? Maybe, but I don't know if it'd be much more than that. So
just small little counterpoint, but I'm hearing you. And that's why, again, I'm picking Rakhmonov, you're picking him, but how much faith could you have him this week? That's all fair. But yeah, his UFC career, he only actually has a 29% takedown accuracy. Like, he's not known as some super proficient takedown artist, as much as eventually he will get you down. And when he does get you down, he's going to snatch up your neck. The difference is that he has a 100% takedown defense. Yeah. And for Garry came into the UFC much like McGregor, striker. He's a striker. And then once it's like, oh, damn, he got dropped by Song Kanon, and he's getting outworked by Jordan Williams. And Jeff Neal is stretching him to his limit. In that Michael Page fight, Michael Page is an elite striker, but he's much older now. He's not the end all be all. Like, Garry was so out of depth with him. He needed to rely so heavy on his own offensive grappling, or he loses that fight 100%. When you see those clips of Kill Cliff or wherever it's Rakhmonov and Ian Garry and they're sparring in the gym, you only see the stand-up, and Garry looks like he's doing quite well. But Ian Garry ended up getting kicked out of that gym a short time after that. Rakhmonov, meanwhile, has continued to improve, but Rakhmonov is very adamant of, like, that's a short clip, and they don't show me taking him down and subbing him very easily. So Rakhmonov's improved his striking, Gary's improved his grappling, but Rakhmonov's 29% takedown accuracy, maybe he goes 1 for 4, but he get that one. Whereas Garry, he's not going to take Rakhmonov
I
down.
don't
So
think
his
that's
game
gonna
is
happen.
he needs to outstrike him for 3 of these 5 rounds and win decisively for these 3 of these 5 rounds. And then last thing I'll leave you with, this could be a dirty split. This could be a dirty split.
See,
So if you're a split decision guy, not the worst thing. Rakhmonov might be getting touched up a little bit. He might get the takedowns. Garry's defensive grappling is really not that bad. He probably doesn't get subbed. Garry's been taken down by Darian Weeks, Gabe Green, and Song Kanon twice. I think Rakhmonov's going to take him down, but the 5-round nature of it is what makes it tricky. So I agree with Paul. The line's too heavy. We're not going to go super, super deep on this one financially, but we're both picking the same guy.
Yeah, it's a great fight. It's a great fight, and
Good fight.
Yeah, it's not very often that you get these undefeated prospects actually taking on each other, except when you have high stakes. Obviously, the winner is next in line for the belts. So, Garry's been kind of protected, but he waited for the moment that, like, okay, this is my opportunity to, like, put myself into that title shot. So he gets a lot of hate, credit where credit's due. He's stepping up to take on Shavkat when there's not many guys in the world that will step up and take this exact position. I'm sure Buckley would have, but Garry, I suppose, is a bigger star, I suppose, at this point, or at least the illusion is that he's a bigger star. Buckley wants to be a big star. I don't know if he's quite there. Anyway, we move on. We've got Ciryl Gane taking on Alexander Volkov. It's a rematch between the two of them. Gane won the first time. Pretty convincing 5-round decision victory, mostly all taking place on the feet. Minus 345 for Ciryl this time around. Volkov can be had for plus 280. Who you got?
Yeah. I expect it to be pretty similar to the first fight. I mean, they fought the last time around. It was a 5-round fight, and Ciryl Gane won on 2 50-45s and 149-46. So, yeah, he just outstruck Volkov, a little bit cleaner. It was a high output fight, not high power fight, but just a lot of touch and go. He had the cleaner Muay Thai. They've both aged a little bit, but not significant by heavyweight standards. Gane's now 34, Volkov's 36. The only real key difference I see here is you got an Alexander Volkov that's got some serious momentum right now. Like, he's winning fights. He's looking good for his age. He's filled out that frame all the way to 265 pounds. Sometimes he comes in, 258, 260, 265, but he's really comfortable spot in his career right now. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. All very nice wins. Jairzinho Rosenstruck, first-round knockout. Alexander Romanov, bum, and treated him like a bum. Finished him in the first round. Tai Tuivasa, choked him out with an Ezekiel in the second. And his last time out against Sergey Pavlovich, we backed him as the underdog, and he cashes a beautiful performance as the underdog. Very clean, precise game. So he's got a ton of momentum on his side, where Ciryl Gane, he hasn't really been super active as of late. Of course, he has the loss to John Jones. He had his own fight with Sergey Spivak. A little bit of few question marks, which how's his body holding up and how's he feeling and this and that. But to me, the key to the first fight was it's strictly a striking battle, right? Alexander Volkov shoots 0 takedowns.
0.
In fact, Alexander Volkov has attempted almost no takedowns in the last 4 years. It's a little bit weird because if you go back to 2020, this guy knows how to wrestle. He got 1 takedown over Curtis Blades, who was a college wrestler. He took down Derek Lewis, and there's nothing to that. But he got 2 takedowns over Fabricio Verdum, a very solid heavyweight at the time, BJJ black belt, world champion. Took down Stefan Struve twice, and he took down Timothy Johnson, another solid college wrestler out of Minnesota. So he can wrestle. Just, again, over the last 4 years, he's not opting to use it at all. Him versus Gane, he opted to not shoot a single takedown, and as a result, it's just a striking battle, kind of a sparring match. Whereas Gane is just the cleaner guy that's able to outpoint him. If he does exactly that this time around, I see similar results. In fact, this time around, it's not even a 5-round fight. It's a 3-rounder. So he's going to have more of a sense of urgency and try to mix up a takedown. But if he doesn't try to do that, then Gane's only really shown to be very vulnerable in the wrestling department. That's how you beat him. He was previously undefeated. He's on his way to beating Francis Ngannou, and Francis figures out, holy shit, this guy can't wrestle. And then in the 5th round, he's still going to win the fight. It's 2-2 in the 5th, and Francis falls to his back. All Gane's got to do is just settle in guard and sit on top of him. This fight is effectively over, and he drops back for an Achilles. Probably one of the lowest IQ moves you'll see in the last 5 years. It's him dropping back for a straight Achilles hold against Francis, allowing Francis to then just get on top of him and then win the 5th and final round and lose the fight by a round. Like, it's just very frustrating, but it shows that there's no real depth to his ground game. Volkov's a black belt. Volkov's got tons of submission wins. Volkov has taken down good guys in the past. If he can mix that element into his game here, yeah, he could spring the upset. I just don't really see him doing it. He seems so content to stand and trade. And now you're fighting another guy that's also long. He's got the speed advantage. He's about 20 pounds lighter than him, 20 pounds lighter than him. So that obviously turns into his natural speed advantage. And then he uses that speed advantage to just beat him to the punch and throw a few more punches as well. So I think gone by decision. More of a not a bad fight. It'll be two heavyweights in a pure striking battle. Like it'll be fun, but they're high. They're high. High quality strikers, and oftentimes when high quality strikers get in there, it's a lot of waiting for the other guy to throw first so you can counter off him, or throwing a few jabs and then a low kick, and then trying to set up everything and springing traps. And it's more of a slow game than one of these two guys off the Contender Series that are just going to bang it out in the center of the cage for $5,000. Those are fun, exciting fights. This is a chess match more than a checkers match. So I'm in for it, sure. But I got Gone. I don't love the price, so I'm trying to get it better by going Gone by decision, because I think this thing's going. Even if he loses, it's still going over 2.5, or just outright the 15 full minutes and going to decision.
Yeah, I went more of like a YOLO play of the week type of strategy on this fight. I took a little bit of Volkov by submission. I took it at 22-1. For some like American people and stuff, you're able to get like 28-1, 29-1 on it. I don't think it's very likely. Obviously, you said all of it, that like he doesn't really shoot takedowns. He used to shoot a little bit more takedowns. I feel like there's got to be a little bit of a mentality here. It's like I already went tit for tat on the feet with this guy over the course of 5 rounds. And I think heading into that fight, Volkov was 2 fights removed from getting absolutely just like ragdolled by Curtis Blaydes. You could just see in that fight, it's like he had just bad vibes about wrestling in general. It's like the moment Gane took him down 4 times, and it's like the moment he got taken down, it was just like he had to get back up. It was like he just didn't feel comfortable being in that range, and I think that was more of a product of like being vulnerable in there against Curtis Blaydes. You went 5 rounds with the guy. He beat you basically every single round, landed the cleaner, more effective strikes. It was like 135, 115 in significant strikes. But like at the end of the fight, nobody's questioning that like, oh, Volkov got him here. It's just like, no, it was very, very like systematically, this guy's faster than you, a little bit cleaner than you, a little bit more technical. If you're Volkov, you got to make this dirty. You got to get in there. You've got to mix it up a little bit. And yeah, that Tai Tuivasa fight, it was a knockdown that got him to the mat. It's like it still wasn't a takedown. I just think at like 3% probability, like above 20-1. I guess 21 would be 5, but like at that range, maybe there's a world where he goes, my grappling's not bad. It's like once I got it down there, I was able to get the Ezekiel choke. Yeah, he goes and watches the Gane fight with John Jones, and he goes like, oh, this guy looks like a complete fish out of water if you get him into that range. He watches against Francis Ngannou, who had like 2 busted up knees coming into that fight. And it's just like the wrestling could be there. Mm. The question is whether he even tries. It's not likely that he even tries. It's very likely he goes out there and does the same old thing again and loses the same old decision that he lost the first time that they fought against each other. I'm just hoping at 20-1 and above that he goes, no, we're trying something different. We're making it dirty. We're going on the inside. We're trying to get the clinch, maybe drag this guy to the mat, because you stand a much better chance of getting the job done against Ciryl Gane than hanging out at range and just eating strikes from an opponent that's just clearly faster and more technical than you on the feet. So, yeah, it's a YOLO play, but Volkov by sub is how I approach this fight. We got Bryce Mitchell taking on Kron Gracie. Minus 1,000 for Bryce, plus 650 for Kron. This fight, this fight just kind of, it seems inevitable that it'll be Bryce Mitchell wins by decision. Bryce would be kind of silly, but he's kind of dumb enough that maybe he considers going into like Kron Gracie's guard and trying to hang out and doing all of that. But like Kron has been very, very durable against much better strikers than Bryce. he just doesn't have very much offense whatsoever on the feet. Bryce is, a year removed from literally one of the nastiest knockouts that you've seen in the UFC in quite some time against Josh Emmett, who just pasted him, had him convulsing. It was an ugly scene all the way around. I feel like Bryce keeps this on the feet. It could be kind of an ugly, not enjoyable fight, but I haven't seen much from Kron in the striking department to lead me to believe that he can hang with Bryce. We've seen glimpses of Bryce being able to hang out on the feet with like some pretty decent strikers, and then he's always trying to get it to the mat. I think he uses the wrestling, keeps it up, and has a pretty clear decision victory. I don't know if I've seen enough pop in his hands to get Kron out of there. So it's like minus 200. Bryce Mitchell by decision, my official pick. What about you?
Yeah. Everything you're saying makes 100% sense. That it's pretty well across the board, right? When you look at what Kron Gracie's accomplished in the last little while, it's virtually nothing. I mean, he's had 3 fights in the UFC. Those 3 fights have not really amounted to much. He debuts in 2019, makes his UFC debut. 3 fights since 2019. It's been 5 years. Debuts by choking out Bruce Leroy in the first round. His second fight was Cub Swanson, also in 2019. Then he effectively takes almost 4 years off before coming back against Charles Jourdain. And then the Charles Jourdain fight, he never even attempted to throw any strikes. His wrestling's not good enough to take down Charles Jourdain. Oh boy, that's problematic. And if you can't take down Charles Jourdain, then you can't use your world-class Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, so it just got nulled. Didn't want to throw a strike standing. Couldn't take him down. What do you think is going to be the end result here, Paul? And so it wasn't pretty. And then that wasn't pretty performance was the last thing you've seen in over a year. And it was the only thing you had seen for the prior 3.5 years. So he's had what? 1 fight effectively since 2019 of October. It's been 5 years, 1 fight in that span. In good conscience, how could you get behind him? He's 36. He's a former BJJ world champion. His jiu-jitsu is probably pretty slick. He's very healthy living guy. So like his version of 36 is not your average male's 36. I'm sure he's in great shape. He says he's going to come into this one and throw a lot more strikes. He attributes the poor performance against Jourdain. I attribute to layoff amongst other things, but he apparently says like the jiu-jitsu community got in his ear of like, hey man, you're representing the Gracies and the Gracies don't really strike. They just use your jiu-jitsu to win. You're trying to prove Gracie jiu-jitsu superiority. So why are you working on head kicks? Why are you working on jabs? Why are you standing with these guys? You need to just essentially pull guard or take the guy down, whatever, one or the other, but get the fight to the ground as soon as you can and work your jiu-jitsu. That's their entire mentality. He says he kind of adopted that going into that Jourdain fight. As a result, threw no strikes, and it was a poor performance. His fight with Cub Swanson, it was fight of the night.
Attempts.
Yeah, it was just like I don't know what the game plan was, but even Charles Jourdain was able to easily sniff it out, and you can't get behind it. The fight prior against Cub Swanson, it ended up being like a fight of the night, and he landed 86 significant strikes over a credible striker, an elusive enough guy in Cub Swanson. He was striking with him. There's some striking elements to his game. He then just proceeds against Jourdain to not use any of them, or his wrestling, or his jiu-jitsu. So unbelievably frustrating that very naturally you're never going to put any money on this guy. So why would you bet him? And no one's going to bet him. And Bryce Mitchell's a 10-1 favorite as a result. And you can see it. You can see it. So breaking it down from a stylistical, I'm going to shock you at the end of this by putting a little bit of money on Kron because I'm an idiot. But stylistically, Bryce Mitchell is very physically strong, right? He's an Arkansas boy. He's a farm boy. He's probably got this long line of genetics of people being very physically strong, blue-collar guys. But when Bryce grabs a grip on you, it's next level. He's a BJJ black belt, of course, but he's a BJJ black belt that can go out and sub other BJJ black belts because the difference is this man is a true dog. He's a true dog on a bone. He's very physically strong. His wrestling is not the most technical, but he's a good wrestler because all he has to do is clasp his hands around you and he's going to take you to the ground. Now, Paul mentions the guy's a terrible striker, and he is. He's a terrible striker. And yet he's given Edson Barbosa everything he can handle standing for no other reason than he is a Arkansas boy, dog on a bone. He has got some physical gifts. He's still young at the time. He's 30 now, which is still young, but starting to get there. But before, he could just outwill you and outlast you and take you to the ground, mop you up, sub you if he wants. If not, land some nice ground and pound. Stand up, he'll take your best punch and he'll walk right through this thing and just give you hard problems all night long. Physically, there's no comparison between this man and Gracie. Kron Gracie is not going to be able to take down Bryce Mitchell. I can't see a world where it happens. Striking wise, Bryce, again, he dog walked at some Barbosa. Why couldn't he do the same thing to Kron? He probably can. He probably can. But there's going to be some sort of stupid ass duck under where Kron's just going to get onto a leg or slip up to the back or land something momentarily and stun Bryce Mitchell and make something happen. But I'm getting real bad vibes off it. Bryce was an absolute monster. Then the fight with Ilia Topuria, he got knocked down in that fight. He got one takedown on, was pretty poor. 9 attempts. One of 9. Mm-hmm. We all know now Topuria is an absolute gangster and he's the world champion. So I'm not discrediting Bryce at all. But at the time, Bryce was the betting favorite, and he could not take him down. 1 of 9. The one takedown he got was at the end of the first. He did nothing but just sit and guard. He later would blame it on a stomach bug, saying he got the flu, and that's what had the poor performance. But you could see there he cannot strike, and he ends up getting TKO'd in the second round. Sorry, he ends up getting subbed in the second round, gets rocked, and then gets caught in a head and arm choke. Mm-hmm. The next fight against Dan Ige, he didn't really throw much. He got takedowns over Ige, who's a much smaller guy than him, but mostly just like he didn't really want to engage. And then, of course, the infamous fight against Josh Emmett after that, where he nearly died. He himself said, I nearly died. Now, he's not fought since December 2023. So it's been 1 full year since he's fought. That in itself is not great for a guy that's a minus 1,000, Paul. Second thing is he's coming off a devastating career ender to some guys, I'm sure. Certainly, you're a different man coming out of it. To come off a year-long layoff, that's not great. To come off one from just an absolute devastating beatdown. In fact, 2 of his last 3 losses were from pretty devastating beatdowns. He's still only 30, I get it, but if you can't just be tougher than your opponent and more rugged than your opponent, like eventually there's going to be some issues. He's not as technical as Gracie, he's just tougher. So if you take away some of that toughness or that desire to just put yourself in the fire repeatedly over and over again, it's going to be a problem. He might not be comfortable standing. Therefore, he's going to shoot a takedown. If he shoots a takedown, well, now Gracie's probably got a better chance than he does if he just gets sprawl and brawled all night. Sprawl and brawl is the way to beat this guy. Not getting comfortable. I haven't fought in a year. I don't remember the last 3 months of my life when Josh Emmett knocked me out. I don't want to get punched in the face no more. Some guy told me CTE is a real thing, and I'm starting to believe him. Can't remember where I parked my car. You shoot a takedown. You go on reaction, and his natural reaction is shoot the takedown. So for minus 1,000, there's a couple red flags there. The last red flag I'm going to throw out at you is most guys lose, and then they go back to the drawing board. And I'm a huge advocate of that. You get better when you lose. Where did I go wrong? And in his case, he might have seen, wow, my striking needs to get a little bit cleaner. He may have seen I should have fought maybe a different game plan, or you could just see different things. I'm not him. I'm not his camp. Whatever. I leave that up to them. But you generally generally improve after a loss, sorry. In Bryce Mitchell's case, he was already a bit of a weird guy. Like, he was a flat earther, is a flat earther. He's anti-vax. He's not saying that one's a weird one. Just whatever the conspiracy theory is, he pushes it to the next level. If you're watching the show, you know him. If you know Bryce Mitchell, he's crazy dude. That being said, once he loses this fight, he's not really getting with any camp. He has his own gym. It's like Thug Nasty's barn, and he's got mats. He's got wrestling mats in a farm on his property in Arkansas. He has no training partners. There's about 5 or 6 guys that train out of the barn with him, one of which is a 60-year-old man, likes to come in, warrior, absolute warrior. Good training partner, but 60-year-old man. He's got 2 young kids that are about amateurs. He's got his cousin, AJ Cunningham, who absolutely got devastated real bad when he stepped up to get in the UFC. And that's about it. Luis Pena used to drop in about 2 days a week, but Luis Pena is now retired and he's totally gone off the deep end again. So God, I wish him all the best, but things aren't great for him right now. Bottom line is that Bryce is self-trained. He's training out of his own gym. He's training himself. He has virtually no training partners. He's got nobody that can push him. He's got nobody holding mitts for him seriously. He's got nobody wrestling for him seriously. Bryce, a few years ago, he was going down to the University of Arkansas and wrestling with the university team. That's how you get better, baby. He's not doing any of that. Not doing any of that. He stayed at home. Now, about, 5-6 days ago, so it'll mark 2 weeks out of the fight, he did go to Las Vegas. You do see some pics of him hanging out with Sean Strickland and AJ Cunningham. but he's done the entire camp as an independent fighter. His gym's not a registered business. It's not an actual gym. They don't have gym equipment. They got some mats and some punching bags. No, they don't even have some punching bags. They just got some mats and you can hold mitts for a guy. Maybe they got a punching bag. But what I'm saying is it's not a serious facility. So he's 100% fully trained himself for this fight. Back in the day, you used to see independent fighters all the time. It's something that in 2024 has virtually been eliminated from the game. The guys that do choose to represent themselves and don't have an actual team, they generally don't do all that well. And I'm not saying he can't win. I book independent fighters, and from the last, I booked 8 of them for the show I'm doing now, but in the last 100 fights, and let's say in the last 100 fights, I have booked 8 independent fighters. They've gone 4-4. Doesn't mean you can't win. It just means you're setting yourself up to not put your best foot forward. You're going to have some type of issues. In Bryce Mitchell's case, he probably still wins this fight, but to be a minus 1,000 favorite coming off a year-long layoff where you almost died and you've trained yourself exclusively for this fight, ooh, boy, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. Now, Gracie's got some family honor on the line. He's got some pride on the line. He's a consummate professional. He treats his body like a temple. He's going to be in excellent shape coming into this fight. He's just not all that good by mixed martial arts standards. But his jiu-jitsu is still world class. The fact that he can land 86 on Cub Swanson, he can intercept a Bryce Mitchell coming in looking to swing, if that's what Bryce is looking to do, which we don't know yet. There's certain little ways that he could put together a nice little game plan. If I was in his team, I would know the game plan I want to pursue against Bryce. It's a winnable game plan. Can Kron execute it once he's physically in there? Well, that's entirely on him. You know, nobody else can get in there for him. He's 36. He's fought once in the last 5 years. His last fight looked abysmal. You probably do not want to bet on this man. So pass. But the show's dog or pass, Paul. Yeah. And so for no other reason than Bryce Mitchell is a 10-1 favorite, I am going to take Kron Gracie as the PRP pick this week.
I can't step in front of you taking a shot on a 7-1 underdog. Yeah, I mean, Bryce Mitchell's money line at minus 1,000. It's like, how much meat on the bone could there be? In fairness, like that Cub Swanson fight was 5 years ago. He did look a lot better on the feet there, but in terms of like what we've seen recently, it's just the Charles Jourdain fight. But yeah, what Bryce usually does to succeed is where he could be in some danger. Maybe he can just get takedowns and hang out and guard and win a fight that way. Training with AJ Cunningham, probably not going to make you all that much better. I did see that he has spent a little bit of time going to the Performance Institute, but it sounded like they were very, very like short little stints that he was going out there. He said he went like out there twice in the last 3 months for like a week type of thing. So he's getting a little bit of help, but he's still running his own camp. I think Bryce wins, but yeah, minus 1,000. It's pretty hard to argue that there's any value left on a Bryce Mitchell money line. I think Bryce by decision is how this fight ends, which is more around like the minus 200 range. That's how I'm attacking it, but who knows? Kron hasn't fought, as you said. He's fought once in the last 5 years, so who knows how this will play out. And when you're laying a minus 1,000, you want to know how things are going to play out. Your boy, Nate the Train, is up next. He's taking on the Korean Superboy, Ho Choi. Minus 135, Nate the Train. Plus 115 for Choi. Who you got?
Yeah, honestly, like this is another 145 fight. I think Ho Choi kills Kron Gracie. I think Nate Landwehr absolutely kills Kron Gracie. But Kron Gracie versus Bryce Mitchell, because of the unknowns, more interesting. As far as this fight goes, Ho Choi was the Korean Superboy. I'm sure is the Korean Superboy, but he's a Superman now. Mm-hmm. And he's looking to try to build on some of that early career momentum, but I just don't necessarily see him getting it back. It seems like he's a straight up finesse fighter. And you'll see it all the time if you go to gyms, you watch sparring. The best guy at sparring, the best guy in the gym, not necessarily the best fighter once the cage door closes. There's guys that just step up and perform a little bit better, guys that are very good athletes in the gym. Ho Choi, he's a finesse guy. Everything he does is clean. He's got very nice, clean footwork, very precise, straight punches right down the middle, can go to the body, excellent, accuracy overall. Takedown defense, really not that bad. Grappling, good. And he was really, really young. So the expectation was this guy was going to blossom and be some huge star. But he just had career setbacks. He had injuries. He had, I think, some military commitment time that he had to go back home for a bit. There was a lot of inactivity. And then when they do book him, is that he takes a lot of damage. His fight with Cub Swanson at UFC 206 in Toronto, It was a fight of the year and ended up winning fight of the year. Just an absolute crazy back and forth fight. You were there live. I think everybody in Toronto was there live. What a wild fight. Stole the show, and it was the best fight of the year. But he took a lot of damage. So much so that his very next fight against Jeremy Stephens, the damage had accumulated that he was ready to go down for the first time. Jeremy Stephens catches him clean, knocks him out in the second round. He then gets Charles Jourdain. Charles Jourdain knocks him out in the second round. You go from having this very nice looking career. He's a finesse guy. The day he chose to get in the dogfight with Cub Swanson, at least temporarily, but it changed him. It changed him. It changed his durability. It changed his ability to get into these types of firefights, and then to lose consecutive fights to Jeremy Stephens and Charles Jourdain by knockout. Certainly a bad look. He then takes time off. He comes back against Kyle Nelson. The Nelson fight was a bit of a weird one. He got muscled around a lot by Kyle. Kyle had a lot of success in that fight. It ended up being ruled a draw because Choi lost a point. So he probably should have won that fight, truth be told. But all the same, if you remember it, and if you're listening to the show, go back and watch the fight again. Kyle Nelson gives him a lot of troubles. He scores multiple takedowns over Choi. Kyle Nelson really not known for his offensive wrestling. So to rack up that many takedowns and to have that much control time and just, outmuscle him in the clinch, it just shows you that the key to beating Doo Ho Choi is you need to be one of these in-your-face aggressive guys. If you can force him to get into an absolute gunfight where you're throwing down tit for tat, you hit him, he needs to respond right away, like the Cub Swanson fight, you can beat him. If you can get him to plant his feet in exchange power for power, like the Jeremy Stephens fight, you can beat him. If you can get this guy to just get into one of these, crazy, very fast motions, very good footwork, very, very type of high explosive type striking battles like Charles Jourdain, you can beat him. You've seen him lose all of those spots. That's how to beat him. Is you got to get in his face and you got to be hyper aggressive. And you can mix in takedowns too. Taking him down is on the table. But staying in the pocket, not giving him room to operate, not giving his brain that extra split second to analyze the info and then make a decision, just system overload his ass. That's how you're going to beat him. Bill Aljamain did not do that. Bill Aljamain stood in front of him. And my expectations for Bill in that fight was that Bill, who's very willing to throw down, high volume guy, willing to stick in your face, Bill just sat back and tried to out-finesse a finesse fighter, and he paid the cost. If Nate Landwehr was to stand back and say, I'm going to trade jabs with Doo Ho Choi, and I'm going to try to counter his left hand with a right over the top, and I'm going to throw some leg kicks so that later in the fight, he'll start to slow down some of that footwork, then Nate's probably going to get iced or lose the fight. But if Nate goes in there and does what Nate does most of the time, which is an absolute car crash forward, I think he wins. He does run the risk of losing by way of setting himself on fire, the way he did against Herbert Burns, or the way he did against Julian Erosa. Like self-sabotage is on the table, but you're going to take a beating until you find a way to capitalize. Doo Ho Choi's accurate. Doo Ho Choi could be the guy. But I think if you let me run that Nate Landwehr train straight into the wall 10 times, he breaking through 7 of them. So I'm going to take Nate Landwehr to get done. Fight of the night. You got an exotic like that where you can bet on fight of the night. Take this one. At the very least, someone's getting a performance bonus, win or lose. Nate, you can't put him on your top ticket because he is absolutely insane and not trustworthy, but boy, oh boy, do we love the guy. So I am picking him. I'm picking him to get the job done. I will be playing him at some point, but yeah, like grit 100% on this one is going to seal the deal at the end of the day. So Nate the Train Landwehr, the official pick.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Landwehr as well. But yeah, this fight is an absolute car crash. Should be incredibly entertaining as long as it lasts. I forgot to mention off the top of the show that we're going to have like a little like cooking up parlay type of thing brought to you by Cool Bets. They're going to give a little bonus to our parlay. What I was going to suggest, I've already written it down as a leg that I want to add to the parlay. This fight doesn't go to decision minus 189. I could see Nate going in there and eating one of eating a shot from Doo Ho Choi, much cleaner, crisper striker, or he makes it an absolute dogfight. And I don't know if Doo Ho Choi can hang for 3 rounds in a dogfight with Nate the Train. So yeah, just a reminder, check the description, and if you want to hop ahead to that, that's a new little segment that we're doing over with the Cool Bet people. They're giving like a little extra bonus on top of what is regularly priced there. So yeah, coolbet.com, promo code DOP. Get it in ya. Moving on down, we've got Dominick Reyes taking on Anthony Lionheart Smith. Reyes a minus 333 favorite. Smith can be had for plus 270. Who you got?
Yeah, I got Reyes to get the job done. Again, we were proponents of he's not washed. He's not washed. He's just been on a really bad run of luck. And then to see him go out there and finally get that win in his last to snap the 4-fight losing streak, I feel like Reyes does still have something to offer. He's not a young man, but 205 is a division where you can fight kind of into your late 30s, early 40s. So he's going to have still some good fights to come. And it's all about mentally, how's he feeling? Some of these guys, sometimes they legitimately just can't take a punch anymore. And that's the end of them. Some of these guys, they're in a bad spot where they've been caught in a few fights. They need to go and overhaul how they go out there and approach their opponents, and they make it work for themselves. There's no doubt about it that Dominick Reyes has fought the best guys in the game. He arguably beat John Jones. When he's at his best, he's a world-class operator at 205. And because I do think he's still got a few good fights left in him, I'm not writing the guy off. I think he goes out there and he gets the win. Smith, meanwhile, I think we all write him off. I think we all write him off in the sense that is washed. He's half as fast as he used to be. That jab is half as effective. He's not throwing kicks like he used to because he hurt his leg. He's got 60 pro fights under his belt. The guy has been there, done that. He too has fought in all of the best guys. It's just like at some point, what he's been reduced to is he can finish you in the very first round. He's got a very good 3 to 5 minutes in him. And then the longer these fights progress is when the wheels fall off. You look at his run as of late, his last time against Roman Delites, he gets doubled up. Roman Delites outstrikes him like 101 to 50. Doubled up, no takedowns, slow pace, slow footwork. He's gatekeeper status. He can give you rounds. He can give you a few looks here and there, but he's not seriously threatening unless you're just fraudulent or you're very inexperienced. He can catch you. He caught Vitor Petrino. We talked about on the show about how inexperienced Petrino is. It was a bad money line. You know, Anthony Smith probably washed, but maybe could catch him if the guy makes a bad decision. The guy made that bad decision. His fight with Ryan Spann, he had an awesome first round. He got his nose broken in the second round and had to squeak by in a split decision. His fight with Khalil Roundtree, short notice, sure, but gasses out after the first round, takes a lot of damage in the second, and goes down in the third. His fight with Johnny Walker took a bunch of damage. His fight with Magomed Ankalaev took a bunch of damage. His wins prior to that, Ryan Spann, first round, Jimmy Crute, first round, Devin Clark, first round. His most recent win, Vitor Petrino, first round. That's where he's at. He can still get the job done. It has to be in the first round. In Reyes' case, when Reyes loses to John Jones, no big deal. The three subsequent fights, he gets knocked out every time. He gets knocked out by Jan Blachowicz. He gets knocked out by Yuri Prochaska. He gets knocked out by Ryan Spann, right? So now there's a clear chin issue, but he took the time off. He took time off. He came back against a tough striker in Dustin. Dustin Jacoby. Tough striker, goes out there and he gets the knockout. This is going to be a violent fight. You talk about fights not going the distance. You talk about under 2.5. It seems to me like if Reyes connects on Smith, he should be able to put him away. If Smith's able to capitalize on a over-aggressive Reyes or catch him with a slow start, whatever the case may be, maybe he does finish him as well. But the difference is that Smith needs to finish this thing in the first 3 to 5 minutes. Otherwise, his win condition gets thrown right out the window. Whereas I think Reyes will mind his P's and Q's early. He'll invest in the jab. He'll figure out the rhythm. He'll figure out the timing. He'll figure out that distance. In the second round, those weapons from Smith become a little bit less so. The timing on Smith becomes a little bit less. His ability to explode and catch you off guard with something becomes a little bit less. And then you'll start to see Reyes' dividends pay effect. And eventually, I think he just puts him over. Either it's a third round TKO. I don't know. There's many ways it could go inside the distance, outside the distance, but I think in most scenarios, Reyes is just a little bit faster, a little bit sharper, mostly going to be a striking battle. Anthony Smith could shoot the takedown, but it ain't going to go good for him. Reyes, meanwhile, could shoot the takedown, but that gives Smith a chance to throw up a triangle or grab a guillotine. Or Smith wins sometimes when you stick your neck into a lazy situation. So I think you just use your footwork to cause him to come to you, use that speed, use that effective accuracy, beat him to the punch over and over repeatedly, and then secure a decision or likely third round TKO. So I'll take Reyes. Is it another big money line and a guy that's not super trustworthy? Yeah. But Paul, look at this card. You got a guy from Japan showing up who's from his 4 career losses, he's been finished all 4 times, including 3 times by knockout. You've got Bryce Mitchell. We've already talked about all his flaws. Kron Gracie, how could you ever really trust him? Although he's my PRP pick for whatever reason. Nate Landwehr, he's not trustworthy by way of he's going for it. He's not thinking about what's logical. He's thinking about Nothing. He's not. I think he's blacked out. I think he's blacked out, and there's nothing going on in his head other than kill, seek, destroy, crush, and that's what gets him by. Reyes, the 3 straight knockout losses. Duo Choi, he won his last fight. Prior to that, he was 0-3-1. Vicente Luque, we'll talk about him in a second. His chin's gone. Themba's old and not very good. Sterling's moved up a weight class. Randy Brown's getting old. Anders versus Weidman. How could you trust either guy? Cody Durden, Josh Van. It's actually hard to trust those guys. Michael Chiesa, world champion when he's on, but he's not on 90% of the time. Clay Guida versus Chase Hooper. Heavyweight Kennedy and Jakku. The whole card is literally guys that you probably can't trust or don't want to trust.
Yeah.
But of course, we're in the business of finding the ones that not so bad and then locking them in and going with them. So it's a tough card, but it's a very exciting card. You don't, of course, from a betting perspective, you want these easy walkovers and these big favorites or these guys that are going to win 9 out of 10 times that you feel comfortable with. These are violent, unexpected fights. It's hard to get a read on sometimes, but from an entertainment standpoint, this is why we love it. These fights, they all have, a probable favorite and then an underdog that's got a valid shot of cashing. And that's what makes the sport competitive and fun. But our job, Paul, is to figure out the ones that are safe. And so far, we've got a flyweight Pantoja. It doesn't feel safe. Rakhmonov versus Garry. You talked about Rakhmonov's, couple issues. Doesn't feel great. Ciryl Gane. Maybe you get behind that one. Bryce Mitchell. How could you feel great about that? Nate Landwehr. Woof. Dominick Reyes, kind of in a woof situation himself. He is the favorite, backing another favorite. Don't feel great about it. But at some point, you just got to suck it up and realize that logically, Reyes has got more paths to victory and seems like he's in a better spot in his career. And so I got to back that and go with him as the pick.
Yeah, Reyes was like a decent sized underdog against Dustin Jacoby in that return fight. He had been on the show for 2 years and nobody believed in him. Obviously, Ryan Spann had knocked him out in the first round. The chin was compromised. Maybe those 2 years off were good for him. He had great performance. It was a hell of a lot easier than I thought he was going to make it. Now they come back with him at minus 333. The one thing Anthony Smith has going for him is that he's durable at the very least. The guy can take a punch. He can take a beating. I think at this price, it's dog or pass. I'm leaning more towards pass, but I think it's probably because I somewhere in the pit of my stomach, it's like I'm not an Anthony Smith guy. I've never been an Anthony Smith guy. I don't like betting this guy. I don't think he's that talented, but the guy's got heart, durability. I don't think his power is that great with his hands. Got some crafty jiu-jitsu when the opportunity presents itself. At plus 270 or wherever this number ends up at the end of the week, because I imagine it may continue to grow. It's dog or pass for me. I think it's going to be leaning more towards the idea of pass. But yeah, I can't touch Dominick Reyes. I know he had one comeback performance against Jacoby and he looked great. 2 knockdowns. It was everything that we had loved about Dominick Reyes. But it's like there was a whole bunch of other bad stuff after that John Jones fight that it's like, I don't know if one performance negates everything, but we'll find out on Saturday night. All right, moving on down. We got Themba Gorimbo taking on Vicente Luque. Gorimbo a minus 149. A favorite. Luque can be had for plus 129. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think if you're a fan of the show, then we'd actually take Themba Gorimbo all the time. And we not that we believe in this story, but yeah, I believe in his story a little bit. He's a guy that's a hard worker, even though he's 33, 34 years old now. He hasn't taken a whole lot of mileage. He's got a lot of pro fights, but it's not as if he's taken a whole lot of damage, so to speak. So he's a little bit green. When he first came to the U.S., it's like he's got previously, similar to Bryce Mitchell, trains himself. Like he's got no structure. He's got no real dedicated team behind him. He's got no real dedicated coach behind him. So he shows up to the U.S. and just tries to train on the fly and gets results. So much so that Colby Covington took an eye out, basically took a liking to him at MMA Masters, helped him out a little bit. The Rock ends up coming in, likes the guy, buys him a house. Dana likes the guy. They offer him a nice contract. Gets paid more than his resume entails him to get paid at this stage, but he's become a little bit of a character. The thing is that he's limited, man. I kind of not had higher expectations. I think I knew what I was getting myself into by backing the guy. Is that because he's now got real coaches and real training partners and a real nutritionist and real person helping him with the weight classes, there's an expectation that it's like, well, this guy finally has all of these, things in front of him, these assets, ability to improve, that he could get twice as good. Themba just didn't really, he never really got that much better. He's very physically strong. He's got power in his hands. He's relying on his wrestling a lot more because of that physicality. He's able to just peel his opponents down to the ground. But once they're on the ground, he doesn't have any devastating ground and pound. He's not passing your guard. He doesn't have some really clean jiu-jitsu game. His physicality is only going to get him so far. At least Bryce, who's also a physical fighter, has a black belt. And at least Bryce wrestled with the university team. Like Themba's wrestling's, it's 2 stages back from that. His jiu-jitsu is 2 stages back from that. And the striking, although, yeah, he could clunk you with one standing, like there's nothing refined about it. And then when they talk to him, it's always, I want a title fight. I want to fight the champ. I want to fight the number 1 contender. I want to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov. And you can appreciate that he wants to fight these guys and that he's got giant cojones on him, but they would all kill him. And it seems that everybody sees that but him. The UFC's not offered him a tough fight to this point. And this is a fringe tough fight because Luque is not what he used to be, but they've not really offered him a tough fight to this point, and yet he's barely squeaking by guys that are not ever going to be ranked, and has this expectation that it's like, hey man, I'm on a winning streak right now. Where's my $1 million fight? Where's my this? They gave you a house and a job and a free
they
gym
didn't
membership
give him a house
and some food.
The Rock
worked
gave
for
him
you.
a house. The Rock gave him a house.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. But I've seen it before. Okay, I see this all the time.
He seems
actually.
like a nice
Mostly
guy.
in like Russia, Uzbekistan, former USS Soviet states, where some rich oligarch will be like, I like you, and I think you're going to be a champ someday. And they'll just fund you. My dad, not that they're rich, my dad's buddy, him and like 6 guys got together and they sponsored this Canadian golfer for one. It was a 2-year deal, sorry. They signed a contract, 2-year deal. They would fund his entries. I'd have to get you the name, but he ended up doing okay. But the way it was structured was it was 2 years and they got to get 15% or 20% of what he made for those 2 years. They figured they about broke even. On the 3rd year, they were like, they asked him, hey, we'd like to do it again because it looked like, oh, dude, this guy's about to break through here. And he declined it because he felt, hey, I'm about to break one through as well. He ended up winning one or doing well in like one good tournament that the winnings from that tournament alone would have made it a good investment. But the bottom line is if you're a high level athlete, people tend to get behind you money wise because there's a return there. Themba has a great story. It seems like he's a guy that, could be a good athlete, but he just hasn't had the resources made available to him. So I think people got behind him, and now the project's not so much there. They gave him, after he lost to AJ Fletcher, but they gave him Takashi Sato. It's not a great fight, but he wins it. They gave him Pete Rodriguez, where he sleeps. Fun fight. Doesn't really do much for you, but knocks out Pete Rodriguez. And then the Ramiz Brahimaj fight, 5 takedowns, lots of control time, didn't do anything with it, mostly just lay and prayed him. Landed 43 significant strikes, neutralized him, don't get me wrong. A guy that's known as a grappler, it just was not impressive. He was hard on himself after the fight, but then the very next fight against Nico Price, he does the exact same thing. Nico's very chinny, but Themba did not want to stand with him at all. In fact, whenever they did stand, Nico would touch him twice and he looked very, very uncomfortable. So he would go back to the same thing he did against Brahimaj, which is spam more takedowns. And physically, he's much stronger than Nico. So despite the fact that the technique's not quite there, he can just, push and pull off the cage or drag him to the ground, get on top of him, neutralize him, win the fight. That appears to be the extent of his game. And whereas you've seen high-level wrestlers, D1 All-Americans, guys like that come in as one-dimensional guys and utilize it, they were at least specialists in their department. Themba doesn't really seem to have any X factor other than the physicality. The technique's not quite there. The experience not quite there. His improvements haven't really been seeming to materialize. Vicente Luque, he's not a cast iron defensive wrestler. He shows 62% takedown defense in his UFC career. You can take him down, no doubt about it. The difference is Rafael Dos Anjos took him down twice. Man, he's a former world champion, BJJ black belt. Jeff Neal took him down. That was a weird one, but he kind of popped right back up. Bilal Muhammad, 5 takedowns. Well, Bilal Muhammad's a current world champion. Michael Chiesa took him down. Michael Chiesa is a high-level guy when he's on. I don't know. He's actually given up a lot of bump takedowns too. But generally speaking, when he does get taken down, is that he will scramble, get back up. He's got a decent little Darce choke on him. He'll attack the neck. He's got obviously excellent pace. The striking advantage, it's night and day. He's a much cleaner striker than Themba. He's got much better volume. He'll go to the body. He'll work the leg kicks. Everything about his striking game is better other than Vincente's been knocked out a few times and has proven to be a little bit
Mhm.
chinny. And Themba hits like a tank.
Yeah.
Themba's technique ain't anywhere close, but there is a world that exists here where he just clean catches him with something
Yeah.
similar to Ipikasanganai this weekend. If you run that fight back a bunch of times, there's different outcomes, but he caught him clean 58 seconds in, the guy went down. That's what happens when you fight 7 times in 12 months. It's going to happen. Vicente, there was a stretch there where he took a lot of damage and his durability was a little bit compromised. He's coming off another knockout loss to Joaquin Buckley. He looked stiff in that fight. He looked like his reflexes were a little bit slowing down. So the writing on the wall is there for Vicente Luque, and the UFC saw it so much so that they tried to book him against Nick Diaz. Fight falls apart, and they say, well, fight Themba instead. And it's a very winnable fight for him. It's a fight that I do favor him in, but yeah, all the same, he's going to have to worry about the two things, which is the big power standing. Even though you're going to outland him 3-1, the big power could hit you. And if it hits you, it's going to hurt you. And in Luque's case, he's been down that road a few times. And then the second thing being, Themba's going to shoot a lot of takedowns. I think Vicente Luque is also a better grappler, a better wrestler. But, I hate having money on a guy that spends 3.5 minutes on his back of the round and you're screaming at the TV like, just get up, or you're screaming at the ref to stand them up, like someone else has got to do the job for you. Those are the most frustrating fights where you're fighting out of a hole because the guy keeps spamming takedowns on you and just neutralizing you for 3 minutes. And you can see that world existing as well. So there's a lot of live underdogs on this card. Themba, again, being one of them, but there's just not enough depth to his game for me to say I like this guy more often than not. So I will take Vicente Luque to win this thing. Not sure if he gets it done by decision or inside the distance because I haven't really seen Themba hurt, not at a high level. I'm not seen him work to the body. I'm not seen him shoot a bad takedown and get his neck caught in a bad situation. He mostly just has his way against guys. And Luque, he's had a roller coaster career with all the damage he's taken. But again, he's a much more refined, much more polished, more technical striker. And so I'm just going to go with a more technical guy in this spot.
You're reading my tea leaves. I mean, I bet a little, because there's a little bit of question marks with him. It was a to win 1 unit type of play. So a little bit less than 1 unit, but I got my plus 130 on Luque. Luque money line. And I bet him plus 450 by submission. Because Themba, it's like the success that he's had, particularly in his last few fights, is like he's able to get takedowns and he hangs out in that position a bunch of the time. I don't think he has a get out of jail for free card if he gets the fight to the mat here. It's he's definitely a lot more danger, and we haven't seen him go up against somebody with like this level, this quality of guillotine as Vicente Luque has shown flashes of. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, if this was Luque of 3 or 4 years ago, this number's not what it is. You're not getting an underdog price on Luque. I understand that there's some question marks there, and we have been backing Themba pretty much every single fight. We see the potential. I just think this is a little bit too much too soon. So, underdog pick for me as well in Vicente Luque. We got Movsar Evloev taking on Aljamain Sterling. Evloev is a minus 270 favorite. Sterling can be had for plus 220. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll take Aljamain Sterling here. Maybe it's a spot where you're chasing a little plus money again, but yeah, I just think there's a lot of value here in Aljamain Sterling, a former world champion at plus 220 his style actually clashes very well against Evloev's. What's there not to like? Now, I get people don't like Aljamain Sterling, and perhaps that's why I'm getting a good number on it, but the guy's very technical, and beyond that, he knows how to win fights. He knows how to do the bare minimum to win rounds, whether it's take the back, whether it's, hit you with the jab a little bit, fight that long game. He's got multiple paths of victory. He's a thinking man. If he needs to fake an injury to get you disqualified, he'd do that too. He knows what to do to get the victory. And so, again, plus 220, that's some pretty nice value when you think about it. When you look at he loses to, okay. We'll just go back to the Peter Yan fights, right? The first time he quits and he gets Yan disqualified. The second time, high ring IQ allows him to get the takedowns, secure the back takes, slightly outstrike Peter Yan, win the fight. That's as quality gets. You guys all know how good Peter Yan is. Aljamain Sterling cheated him the first time. He beat him the second time. I got to give him his dues on that one. TJ Dillashaw popped his shoulder out of place, so that's a wonky ass one, but he annihilated. Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo is the youngest American to win an Olympic gold medal in freestyle wrestling. He's an Olympic gold medalist. His wrestling is about as good as it gets. Aljamain Sterling took him down 4 times. He took him down. He controlled him. He beat him standing. It's a quality victory over what was one of the best flyweights of all time and a very serviceable former UFC 135-pound champ as well. Clean victory from Aljamain. That's where he's at his best. Him walking into the Sean O'Malley, he won the first round, although it was a crap round. The second round, the place is booing. He realizes, I got to make something happen. And he steps in and gets countered. This is the fight game. It's going to happen. You hear the noise. You made a bad move. You got caught. It's no big deal. And yet the world treats it like it's a big deal. How do you go from career wins over Henry and Peter Yan and Corey Sandhagen, and who he choked out in a minute 28 seconds? How do you go from such a great body of work to you got cold cocked by a heavy hitter at 135 pounds and you're done. Nobody likes you anymore. So he decides, well, I'm such a good guy. Instead of going on another run at 135, I'm going to leave 135 so my buddy Merab Dvalishvili can have his chance. I had my chance. How does Aljamain rematch O'Malley? Completely different, but it's not going to happen because he decides, I'm going to let Merab do what I should have done, which is take his ass down. I'm going to let Merab do that. I'm going to move up to 145. Betting underdog against Calvin Kattar at UFC 300. First fight up at 145. He looked a little bit soft. So, and Paul, you know this. First time you move to a new weight class, you're going to have a bit of a stiff performance. His fight with Kattar, he just did the bare minimum again. He's able to take him down at will. He's able to control him at will. He made a good point at the press conference. Everyone said it was the most boring fight on the card, which it was. He said it was the most decisive fight of the card. Outside of Pereira knocking out Hill, he's actually right. He took no damage. He took no risks. He pitched a absolute, clear, perfect 30-27 shutout over a credible, not title challenger, but a fringe top 5 title challenger in Calvin Kattar. He mops him at 145, but he looked a little soft at weigh-ins. Now you see him, and this is going to be his second fight at 145. Bro, he's jacked, man. This guy's thick. And Merab's his best friend, so he's probably not telling the full truth. But Merab's like, yeah, I can't even take this guy down, man. And when I do take this guy down, I ain't holding him down. His grappling's just as good as anybody you've seen. His wrestling has always been good and is just about as good as you've ever seen. And his striking's good. It's legitimately good. He won the first round against Peter Yan in that first fight by simply beating him to the punch. Faster than him, clean shots, lands something like, oh, this is a sickening number. First Peter Yan fight, which he won by disqualification, he landed 27 of 74 significant strikes in the first round. So Peter Yan threw 21 strikes in the first round. Aljamain Sterling threw 74 in the first round. He gassed himself out and then had to resort to quitting by disqualification to get the job done. But he has the skill. It's how he utilizes them that remains to be seen. So in this particular matchup against Movsar Evloev, well, Aljamain Sterling's a better striker than him. So if he's able to use his wrestling defensively, keep this fight standing, just like Merab says, hard to take him down, hard to hold him down. If that's the case, Aljamain wins this fight standing. If Aljamain can offensively take down Movsar, oh, buddy, imagine Aljamain takes his back, which is all possible because he's an excellent scrambler who has a knack for taking opponents' backs. Last but not least, Movsar takes him down and sets up shop and guard. Aljamain's guard's really not that good, truth be told. But you saw, at least in the Diego Lopez fight, that it's like you can catch this guy sleeping on something because he's, although an excellent Sambo-style practitioner, hold you down, avoid submission attempts, he's not a clean jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's maybe not seeing some of these things get set up. So I think if this is just a straight-up jiu-jitsu match where you start on your knees, Aljamain's got better jiu-jitsu. I think if this is a straight-up wrestling match in a singlet, Aljamain holds his own. If this is a kickboxing match, Aljamain kicks his ass. This is his second fight at 145. He's going to look better than he did last time out. He's got weapons that he could utilize here. He's got multiple paths of victory that he could utilize here. And he's a plus 220 underdog. So I like him as much as I like some of these 2-1, 3-1 favorites on the show, which is shocking to me. And for that reason, it's a lock it in. Yeah, I know I'm taking a few underdogs here and there, but that last fight, we got a plus 130. The Kron Gracie one's more of just a shot in the dust because it's just absurd. This is one I stand behind fully. I'm not just chasing a number. I think Aljamain Sterling can win this fight, should win this fight. It's an excellent price tag. I'll take it. My get out of jail free card is I take the fight to go the distance as well. In the offhand chance that Movsar is able to take him down or hold him down, I just feel like Sterling will either take the back, neutralize it, win rounds, as we've seen him do, or use that jab and use that speed from the outside to outpoint him, which we've seen him do. But I don't see him knocking out Movsar Evloev. Knocking him out, possible, but still a bit of a stretch. Flip side to that, how does Movsar beat Aljamain Sterling? Submitting him? Yeah, I highly doubt it. Knocking him out? Yeah, probably not. If we're being honest with each other.
Kind of what he did against Diego Lopez, I think, is how
this thing's going to decision. It's going to decision regardless of who wins the fight. So I'm going to take Sterling because it's a nice money line. I'm going to take Sterling by decision because I'm a degenerate. And then I'm going to take that fight goes the distance so that even if Sterling underperforms and disappoints me, I still think I make some money back. My bad case scenario is Movsar knocks him out or submits him. Of course, possible, seemingly unlikely in my mind. So that's kind of my angle on this one. I will take Aljamain though as a live underdog.
Yeah, Aljamain by decision is plus 300. The over is obviously pretty juiced, but I expect this to fight will go to decisions, like minus 325. Movsar has been going to decision. The big thing here is that, like, I feel like Aljo's number one training partner, Merab, on a day-to-day basis. Of course, it's only at 135 pounds where Merab fights, but it's like you're defending takedowns from that mutant every single day. You should probably be pretty prepared for literally anybody's takedowns. Henry Cejudo was able to take him down. Peter Yan, I guess it was probably a bunch of trips and stuff, but 7-1 on takedowns. That's a bit of a weird one.
In the first fight, and they're almost all trips once Aljamain gasses himself from throwing too much volume in the first round. 100%. But that's what I will say. Aljamain at 145 isn't cutting 30 pounds anymore to make weight. If his gas tank don't fail him, that was really the only flaw in his game. You can even attribute him getting knocked out from Sean O'Malley when they released that video where he's telling Hunter Campbell, and he's like, I'm not ready. Like, I'm not in shape. And they convince him, oh, it's a great fight for you, dude. You're going to get paid. Do it. He probably botched a bad weight cut. First round, he doesn't really want to try to wrestle him because he knows he's had a bad weight cut and he doesn't got any cardio. Second round, he decides, screw it, I got to make something happen. And he walks in, he gets punched. A punch he normally takes now knocks him out flat. Him at 45, you could get better results. So this is a unique opportunity to take a gamble for sure on a guy that could be a problem in this division, and you're getting him at plus 220. So Evloev has fought a lot of guys that aren't great because none of the great guys actually want to fight him. So there's a bit of an unknown there. Like, there could be some ways to exploit this guy still. Aljo would be the guy to figure it out.
Yeah, all to say, like, I was just kind of going through like the spots where he had a few questionable situations. Like, it's hard to not like Sterling. That was one of the dogs that I had circled at the beginning of the week because I used to expect the fight to be probably pretty competitive. Split decision prop very much on the table here too. I could see
you're right,
just being very, very competitive. But Aljo at his best, we've seen at least in the striking departments, like he can just put up crazy amounts of volume that we haven't seen from Movsar. And I don't think there's much, like, Movsar could maybe get takedowns and hold position, but like, yeah, he's been able to get takedowns and most guys get back up. I expect that Aljo will be able to get back up. So yeah, plus 220. I think you can do a lot worse than Aljamain Sterling in this spot. We got Bryan Battle taking on Randy Rude Boy Brown. Bryan Battle, a minus 222 favorite. Brown, the underdog at plus 185. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is more gut feeling than anything, but gut feeling is like Bryan Battle is on a roll, dude. He's got some swag about him where he's got heavy hands. We've always known that. I've always said his best attribute is he fights excellent off his back foot. Like, not necessarily the cleanest counter puncher, but if you want to pressure him, he'll just walk you into shots. And most guys don't generate as much power as they're backpedaling because they're not planting their feet, thrusting their hips. But not the case with Battle, man. He hits you. He does a tremendous amount of damage. There looked to be a path of victory against this guy where you could spam takedowns. Renat Fakhretdinov was able to take him down 7 times. He held him down for like 14 and a half minutes of a 15-minute fight. So pretty abysmal. And it looked like there was some clear limitations to Bryan Battle's game. But I'll tell you what, dude, if you just want to prop out a jab out there and some low kicks and wait for this guy to throw down, he's going to hit you. He's going to land the bigger, cleaner blows. He's going to have the more effective, eye-peeling shots. I think the judges are going to get behind it. Randy Brown, very serviceable. I've made my money with Randy Brown for no other reason than you know what you're getting. He's very long for the weight class. He's got measurements of 6'3" with a 78-inch reach, and he's good at utilizing those proportions. Stays to the outside, uses a jab, uses a low kick. Good grappling, but the short, stout, stocky wrestlers, yeah, they're problematic for him. And the big, strong power strikers, they're problematic for him. It's those guys that aren't willing to pull the trigger first, stay to the outside and let him get his flow game going, or a guy that he can take down and have some good grappling spots again. Randy Brown beats those guys all day long. It's on a nice little three fight winning streak. He's actually 7-1 in his last 8 fights. He's been doing everything right. But there's just something there, man. There's something there. I'd go back to key fights against Chaos Williams, who knocked him down and he squeaked out a split decision over. Jack Maddalena, where he got dropped again. He did get knocked down and then he ends up giving up the back and getting rear naked choked. His fight with Wellington Turman, he looked awful against Wellington Turman. Tired out the back half of the fight. Basically relied on Turman not being very good himself, but very flat performance. And then beautiful knockout over Muslim Salikov. That aged pretty good. So does Muslim Salikov. Damn, that guy ages good. And then Lizu Zaleski dos Santos. That actually is a very credible win as well. There's nothing you can take away from the guy, but it seems like he needs to fight a certain pace. And Zaleski dos Santos is near 40. Muslim Salikov is 40. Turman's cut from the UFC. Francisco Trinaldo was 40. Jared Gooden's not old, I guess. Alex Oliveira was in his late 30s. Like, he's generally fought older fighters where he has a clean speed advantage over. That jab, those low kicks from the outside are extra effective. He could thwart off a few takedown attempts here and there. Hell, maybe even mix one up his own of his own. But he's very much falling into a generalist spot. He's now 34 years old. So at some point when the reflexes are just starting to diminish, somebody's going to come over that jab and they're going to hit you with something, or somebody's going to step in the pocket before you're able to retreat out of it, or someone's going to hit you when you're 6'3", got like a tall man defense. A lot of time they'll stand upright. Someone's going to catch you flat footed and come over the top. So I just feel like Bryan Battle's that guy. And even though Bryan Battle's 2 inches shorter, he's got a 77-inch reach of his own. Like, he's got a long ass reach. He tends to get to the target. I will give him one thing. Gabe Green is just like an in-your-face brawler. Gabe steps in on him, and Bryan just ball cops. Beautiful counter. Knocks Gabe Green absolutely flush out. Gabe Green went the distance with Ian Machado, Garry, so for whatever it's worth. His fight with AJ Fletcher, clean win as well. His fight with Angelusa quits. Doesn't get a disqualification like Aljamain, ends up being a no contest, but he's kicking his ass. And then I took Kevin Jousset and I stood by it. And I stood by every word I said on that show. I like Kevin Jousset. And then all I can hope is that Kevin Jousset had the flu or something, because he made Kevin Jousset look like the worst fighter on the roster. And that wasn't Kevin Jousset's actually crap fighter. Maybe a little bit of that. It was mostly Bryan Battle made him look real bad. Bryan Battle pretty good. He's really developing and coming to his own. I feel like he's finally hitting that sweet spot. He's 30 years old. That's kind of the prime for these athletes. And he's waiting on one of these marquee breakout victories. Randy Brown presents a guy that's 7-1 in his last 8 fights. He's got a bit of a name. It'd be a nice victory. He's not shown to be regressed in any area. He's not shown to be chinny. He's not shown to be anything. It's going to be a nice quality victory for Bryan Battle. He'll get jabbed a little bit early, get kicked a little bit early. Might take him a few minutes to find that rhythm and that flow. But at some point, this thing is going to turn from a fight to a battle, and I want Bryan in that spot. So I gotta think it's inside the distance, to be honest with you. I'm feeling Bryan Battle by knockout. For the purpose of this show, I'm just gonna take that money line. But if you were someone to chase props, chase a spot that might be a little bit juicier, Battle by knockout, it's on the table.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with much there. The only one fight that he looked poor was against Fakhretdinov, who really exploited his wrestling. Randy Brown doesn't have that in his tank. Randy Brown, he kind of broke it down pretty well there, is that he's long and he's got like decent technical striking, but when push comes to shove, and if somebody wants to make this like a dog fight, it's going to be Bryan Battle. He just kind of gets in guys' faces, throws up crazy amounts of volume where he needs to. He ran through the entire, the tough house to get himself to the championship of that show. Yeah, the only blemish on his entire career has really been that Renat fight where, he was just outmatched in the wrestling department. That's the type of matchup I'm going to be worried about with Bryan Battle when he rises the ranks, but that ain't that's not the fight that we're dealing with here against Randy Brown. So Battle for me, Battle potentially inside the disc. I don't know. I haven't really thought about props on this fight to be perfectly honest. But yeah, Battle's literally just been getting everybody out of there. So why not?
Yeah,
Why not Randy Brown?
He loses to Fakhretdinov because he's got a clear hole in his defensive grappling. Clear as day. I'm not saying Fakhretdinov's a bad grappler. I mean, he's a power wrestler, but that's the way to beat him. And then you see subsequent to that, the guys that have tried to take him down have not been able to. Part of the reason I took Kevin Jousset is a judo black belt who had some decent takedowns. He never caught a whiff, man. He tried twice. He never caught a whiff. AJ Fletcher, explosive former collegiate football player. He shot 2. Never caught a whiff. Mm-hmm. Him losing in that manner to Rinat Fakhretdinov, I think would cause him to be like, well, we all know I can strike. Let's learn how to wrestle. And once he learns how to wrestle, very much like Happy Gilmore learning to putt, well, the rest of the division's in trouble. This guy looks like he's going to be a problem. So Randy Brown's been so serviceable, but it's starting to get near the time where he's going to start drifting out of that top 10, he's not even a top 10, out of that top 15. Battle, it's roles reverse. He's just getting ready to crack into it. So they're just meeting at the right point, but sounds like you're on board with that one as well.
100%. All right, we got Chris Weidman taking on Eryk Anders. It's a straight pick 'em, homie. Who you got? Obviously, this fight was booked on fight day. Eryk Anders has food poisoning, and they decided to run it back a couple weeks. I believe, were you picking Anders before? I forget.
No, we both had Weidman, but it was in New York, so it actually
that was part of why we were doing it, because we're like, if it goes to decision, we know who everyone's cheering for, and it was just some of the home cooking that we were hoping for.
Yes.
Yeah. So did it change? Do you like Anders now?
No, it didn't change. Yeah, it didn't change. I mean, if you go back to the last breakdown, it's like, obviously Weidman's not what he used to be. He's near the end of the road. Anders has proven to be like a serviceable gatekeeper type guy. It's all about proper matchmaking. If the UFC gives you a proper fight, some of these old guys can still go out there and get the win. We've seen recently Jim Miller go out and pick up like nice little win, but they got him matched against Damon Jackson. It's a winnable fight for an older fighter. They got to fight similars. Anders never really has his foot on the gas at all. Like his last fight against Jamie Pickett, he landed 23 significant strikes and he got knocked down. Jamie Pickett, yes, Jamie Pickett knocked him down and held him to 23 significant strikes landed, but he spammed 5 takedowns. That's it. His fight with Barrio, he tried to spam takedowns, couldn't take down Barrio, who, by the way, cannot wrestle, and also got knocked down.
And knocked him down.
Just like you're saying. I'm not worried about Weidman knocking him down. It's more so just that's your body giving up on you. And then Anders goes on record to be like, I don't know if he said he was a drug addict or an alcoholic. I don't want to put words in his mouth or anything like that, so like don't quote me directly. But he said, I put myself in some real bad spots and at some real bad times. And what happens when you play college football is that there's a lot of trauma from the time that you're 6 years old playing to the time that you go through high school to you graduate at 18, to go to college, play till you're 22. This guy's case, he had not offers, he had pro tryouts in the NFL coming off a national championship with Alabama. Like, I don't doubt that he's probably got a lot of physical damage prior to even stepping into a mixed martial arts cage. And then beyond that, he's gone out and he's racked up a considerable amount of fights. He's got 26 career fights on top of the football, on top of, he's a coach at a gym, on top of constant training. Now he's 37 years old. Now he admits that he's had a substance abuse problem. I just don't really feel like his body's in great shape. So yeah, his last 2 fights, Jamie Pickett drops him, which is huge. Very, very problematic that Pickett would drop you. But just like you said, Barrio drops him. Maybe it's damage, maybe it's injuries, maybe it's doesn't care as much as he used to, but he's a former football player, so he's built on athleticism, and yet he's not fast twitch muscle. He's not 0 to 100. He's not Michael Chandler. He's not very like go explosive. So I don't think he's the greatest athlete, to truth be told. Good football player, didn't make it to the NFL for a reason. In his fights, he's slow, he's prodding. The fact that he lands 20, 30, 40 significant strikes per fight, he's just loading up on the one big shot. And yet when you look at his record, he has knocked out Kyle Daukaus, who proved not to be very good, and he knocked out Vinicius Moreira. Oh, and Tim Williams, he kicked him in the face as he was getting up. In a fight he was losing, by the way. Doesn't matter. Main thing is that he's actually not big on KO wins. He's fought a lot of guys that had durability issues, did not put them away. He's not a natural wrestler. Wrestling something he picked up later on. Physically in the clinch, he's strong enough. But he was the favorite over Weidman in New York. No, has the odds changed at all?
It was originally opened up in like, I believe, like when it originally opened up, like before the previous match or previous time it was booked. It opened up with like
but I thought he was slight favorite.
Anders, the first time that they fought, it opened up at like pretty big favorite for Anders. And then money came in on Weidman to make it pretty much a pick 'em. And then because that already happened, the books were like, well, we know that people want to bet Weidman here. So they opened it up as a pick 'em basically this time around and just left it there because they know that basically people are going to bet whoever turns into the underdog, it seems like. So make it a pick 'em because both of these guys have warts. And to just to bring up, I went and did a little bit of research because you were just like, I don't want to put words in his mouth about being a partier or anything like that. So he gave up drugs and alcohol for the first time in 14 years. And this is
it was drugs and alcohol.
A quote directly from him. He goes, I was just partying, drinking, doing party drugs, Molly, acid, ecstasy, you name it. I wasn't under a bridge with a needle in my arm smoking crack or nothing like that. I was just out all night doing all that stuff, just drinking, smoking, doing all that stuff. Sounds like my kind of guy, but not somebody maybe I want to bet money on. Like I wouldn't want to bet money on, younger me for instance. But yeah, Eryk, Party Anders sounds like a good time. But yeah, everyone has their line in the sand. Eventually you're like, I'm getting too old for this stuff.
I met Eryk Anders like 8 months ago in Nashville at a fight show, and I was doing party drugs. And he didn't give me no vibes, and he certainly didn't give me no drugs. So Eryk, come on, dog. We was vibing, and your guy lost. Even more reason to do some party drugs. No. Cut little Cody out. But I wish him the best. Being clean is where it's at. So it sounds like he's got his life together, which would help him.
Yeah.
But oftentimes you'll see, it's like you still got. It's hard to explain. Okay. I'd see a guy he'd tear his groin, or he'd blow his ACL out, or he'd do something, and it'd be like, damn, dude, it's the wear and tear for the wrestling, but it's the wear and tear from the drugs. So the drugs dries you out, and it dries out your joints, and it dries out your ligaments, and all of a sudden this stuff tears because you're not properly hydrated because you're strung out on drugs. So it's just like one thing leads to the next. And when you're young, you can handle it. Like we were talking about Carlos Paredes smoking cigs. It's not going to catch up to him until he's 45 years old, 50 years old. Then he'll realize he's winded. It catches up to you later on. The drugs, it catches up to you later on. But all of a sudden, you're 35, 36, 37 years old, and these camps are a little bit harder, and the weight cuts are a little bit harder. And Anders has floated up weight classes a little bit and had a couple rough goes, and all of a sudden the reflexes are a little bit shot. So when he was the favorite in the fight in New York, yeah, we saw all the reasons to just auto fade him. Sometimes we got to do that. The line doesn't make sense. Ain't nobody's got faith in Weidman. Slap yourself in the face. Are you kidding me? But it's the auto fade on the other side because the line doesn't make any sense. So I think a lot of people did that. It caused the number to go even. The fight gets canceled. It gets canceled because Anders ate something to upset his tum-tum. But maybe Anders sniffed something that upset his tum-tum. We don't know the story. So it's hard to now say I'm betting the guy. You just don't know what was going on.
I think he was clean by that time.
You know what? These are jokes. I hope people interpret them as that. Well, I actually didn't mean him. That's not a joke. I just mean, like, if it seems like I take a shot at a guy's character, I never mean to do that. He's a good guy. I wish him nothing but the best. It's just, this is a show where we put money on guys, and I'm not looking to put my money on him. So the fight gets canceled because he's got, a food issue. You knock it back 2 weeks. It doesn't really benefit anybody. But on one hand, you would say, well, one guy's sick, probably didn't go to the gym. Now he's got to travel. Now he's got to book another card. Now he's got to recut the weight or whatever the case may be. I just don't think it benefits you to pull out of a fight due to illness and then fight somebody 2 weeks later. It might not matter. It's not a benefit. So nothing's changed for me. I think Weidman, this is his swan song. I never bet guys when it's predetermined that they're retiring after the fight. And that's kind of the vibes I'm getting off Weidman here. But Anders has relied almost exclusively on taking guys down and holding them down to win his last number of fights. Weidman's got a lot of things going against him now, but his defensive wrestling, not really one of them. I think he can stuff a takedown as good as he ever has. I think he can shoot a takedown, not as good as he ever has, but can still shoot an offensive takedown. Anders will struggle to take Weidman down. Weidman may struggle, but will get Anders down if need be. So there's an advantage there just strictly wrestling. The striking, Anders has got some pop. As we outlined, he's not a power puncher per se, but maybe has a power advantage at this stage over Chris Weidman, but Weidman's got a better jab. He's got slightly better footwork despite snapping his leg one time. He, throws a little bit with more. There's a little bit more sense of direction where he's going with it. He's trying to bait you into one side so he can set you up for the takedown. He's looking to maybe not kick anymore, but I mean, he'll throw combinations at times. Anders is mostly a one and done kind of guy. Back you up, one and done, back you up, one and done, press you up against the cage, take you down. I would say that in a close competitive fight, I favor Weidman. And then in New York, a close fight, because he's Chris Weidman in New York, would go his way. Yeah. Now I can't rely on that. I need to rely on 3 terrible judges, which is pretty much what I need to rely on for most of the fights I gamble, because this is the situation we're in with bad refereeing in 2024. So nothing I can do about it. I just got to hope they get the call right. Again, it'd probably be a slow bog. It's probably going the distance. Fight goes the distance is the smart play. If you want to get greasy with it, it's another one that could be a split because of that close, contentious, not much going on nature of it.
Yeah.
But then straight up, I got to make a play straight up. It's Weidman for me. And if you want to juice it a little bit, Weidman by decision.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think he'll probably just slightly out volumes, out strategizes in this type of situation if it turns into a 15-minute kickboxing match. He went up against Bruno Silva last time out, and there was the eye pokes, and they were very prevalent, but it was like 75 to 37 significant strikes. He showed that it's like he's missing a whole bunch, but one of these guys is a former champion, and the other guy is not. So, one guy's a former national champion, I suppose, for the University of Alabama, but the other guy's an actual former UFC champion. I think that experience gives me
champ versus champ.
gives me the lean towards Chris Weidman, but at this stage in Weidman's career, it's hard to feel overly confident in any of his fights, to be perfectly honest. We got Josh Van taking on Cody Durden. Josh Van, a -159 favorite. Durden can be had for +135. Smart matchmaking here. I think you got Durden's grappling savvy, should have some success early. Van is one of those guys. His takedown defense does seem to be exploitable, but the striking and the speed, typically outside of the Charles Johnson fight, he's able to put it on guys, and that volume just becomes overwhelming. Durden is a guy who historically has gassed a little bit in his fights. I think it's just good matchmaking and competitive fights, and I can see both paths to victory. I'm going to side with Van. But I think in round 1, especially if Cody Durden gets that wrestling going, it can be dicey very, very early. Probably more of a fight that I'm interested in from a live betting perspective, because I do expect Cody Durden to come out. He always comes out hot, and maybe the opportunity doesn't present himself, because there has been times that Cody Durden has come out super, super hot, and then he runs into a shot himself. But I expect Durden to probably get a takedown or two early on in this fight, and then if we get to round 2, that's when I would be looking to enter on a Van side, because the pace that Van will keep, I don't think Cody Durden can keep that up over the course of 3 rounds. I looked at Van round 3 props. It's 7-1 for him to win in round 3. So it's the books have sniffed that out entirely. It's hard to make any money on round 3 props at 7-1, but that's just the nature of prop betting in the year 2024. Van for me, but I expect round 1 to be difficult. What about you?
Yeah, you stole my notes on this one 100%. Live bet this after the first round. Cody Durden is going to win the first round. He is a hot starter with solid wrestling, very willing to engage with his opponents, very willing to push a pace. And Josh Van's a very slow starter. Van's losing all of these first rounds, win or lose. He loses the first round. Durden, it's the exact opposite. He pretty much always wins the first round, win or lose. So to be honest with you, I actually see Cody Durden going out there and making it look easy in the first round. And then the second round, he may go out, complete takedowns, and win the second round. It's that you need, if you're a Van backer, you need Durden to gas out in that second round and Van to just do enough to eclipse it. In the third round, it's Van all day long. You got to make sure you're not down 2 rounds, because then you'll need a Van third round knockout, which is definitely on the table. But you'll need the third round knockout. Whereas if it's 1-1 going to the third, you're money. That first round is very key, though. I'll admit, I can't say I can't pick a Cody Durden fight, but I'm probably less than 50%. Like I had Chris Gutierrez to beat him. That ended up being a draw. I had Jimmy Flick to beat him. I had Muhammad Makayev, I guess, to beat him. But as of late, I had Jake Hadley to beat him, and Cody Durden went out, fight Nashville, actually, for the record, UFC Nashville. Cody Durden just he took him down. He controlled him. He got into an inverted triangle choke in the second round, but shucks it off, goes out there in the third round, takes him down. His cardio held up. His physicality held up. Former state wrestling champion out of Georgia. The guy's very physical. When he's on, it's really not that bad. Tagir Ulanbekov, okay, I got that one right. Ulanbekov's got the type of wrestling to match him. Oh, I guess I got the Bruno Silva one right too. And then I tried to fade him against Matt Schnell, and he got me back one. You know what? I probably am about 50%. I'm 2-2 in the last 4 Cody Durden fights, but I've faded him in his last 4 fights. I've not bet this guy in 4 straight. I'm 2-2 over that stretch. Not good, not great. What version of him shows up? That's the question, Paul. Because what I can't take away from him is he got a lot of dog in him. He really does. He's willing to take the tough fights. He'll sign on the dotted line. He took that fight with Matt Schnell on about 3 days' notice. Tapology says he missed weight because it was at 135. They both agreed to 135 because Durden quite literally rolled off the couch and drove to Las Vegas to make it happen. The guy is a dog. And with that wrestling and that aggressiveness, he wins the first round most of the times. If he can keep that wrestling going like he did against Charles Johnson, who he took down 11 times, or Jake Hadley, who he took down 4 times, it's a serious problem for guys. If you can stuff the takedown and create this, he needs to just play rock'em sock'em robots with you, you got a shot. The Bruno Silva fight, I had that one right. And I talked all this smack about how Bruno was going to kick his ass. Yeah, he was killing Bruno. First round, he absolutely mauls Bruno. Second round, he's mauling Bruno. And then kabamo, we hit that counter right, knocked him out. I can't take credit on that, dude. It wasn't a walk in the park. I knew we should fade this guy. Durden's a problem because we love betting on guys that fight for your dollar. And Durden's fighting for his life, which includes your dollar. He's going to give you his best effort, and I admire that. I had a high sense of admiration for that, so I actually do like the guy. Van, meanwhile, Van's going to be the next big thing in the sense that he's still young, he's still improving, he's going to eventually get all these skills necessary to keep the fight standing and to hopefully not take as much damage, but his handlers are doing a poor job with him, I think. He's 23 years old. Keep this in mind. Young kid, 23 years old. He makes his amateur MMA debut in December 12th, 2020. So to this day, it's a little less than 4 years to the day, right, Paul? Okay. In that time, he's had the 4 amateur fights and he's had 13 pro fights. So he's fought 17 times in less than 4 years. He averages 4.5 fights per year. You can see it catching up with him. It's catching up with him. His fight with Zalgas, he took some damage, but all good. Successful underdog score in his debut. His fight with Kevin Borges, he took some damage. He comes right back a few months later against Felipe Bunez, who he lost the first round to and got taken down twice. Again, great fight to go look back on why Cody Durden will win the first round of this spot, just like Bunez did. And then the Charles Johnson fight, he's knocked out for the first time, and then he takes July to September, knocked out for the first time, and he comes right back to fight Edgar Chairez to squeeze in one more. But why? He's fought 17 times in the last 4 years. He's hyperactive, and now you can see he's getting hit, he's getting hurt, he got knocked out, and he's only 23, so he's good to go because he's young. His brain's fine. When Josh Van is 27 or 28, where most athletes are starting to come into their prime, he's going to be done. He'll be shot to bits. Similar to Muay Thai fighters who have 300 fights, and by the time the guy's 26, he's a washed-up former champion who's done. Well, he's only 26. Well, this guy's only 28. What happened to him? It's like, oh yeah, he's done. Well, why is he done? Because he's had 200 to 300 fights. So Van is from he's from Myanmar, right? Formerly Burma, right? And back in the day, it was Burmese bare knuckle boxing. Now it's called Lethwei. They don't care about fighter safety. It's Muay Thai plus one extra weapon. You're allowed to headbutt a guy, okay? If you get knocked out in Lethwei, Burmese bare knuckle boxing, if you get knocked out clean, hit the deck, you are Bryce Mitchell versus just Josh Emmett knocked out. Yeah, they don't 10 count you. They give you like 5 minutes. They'll pick you up. They'll put you on a stool. They'll dump a bottle of water in your face. They'll wake you up, and then they'll let you fight again. So Van's going in there with that mentality. He is going to be shot to bits once he's older from just this competing all the time. And Cody Durden has an excellent chance here to go out and capitalize on the fact that the guy's competing so much that between camps, he's not making a whole lot of improvements, okay? As far as his UFC record goes, he got taken down by Zhalga Zhumagulov. He got taken down twice by Felipe Bunez. Durden should be able to take him down. Durden's cardio holds up. He can do that for 2 of the 3 rounds, and then he's going to have to avoid him like the plague in the third, but it is possible. Last thing I'll say, and I hate to bring this up again because it cost me a lot of money, but Impa Kansangana, because this is all the beauty of after the fact stuff that you think about afterwards, where it's like, oh, you know what? Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. But that's why I love doing the recap show, because you talk about those coulda, shoulda, wouldas. Here's the coulda, shoulda, woulda for Impa Kansangana, okay? In 2023, he fought for PFL 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in 2023. He competed for the PFL when he won the tournament. That's 5 fights in the year, okay? Whereas everybody else took a little bit of time off, he took off December and January and decided to fight on the PFL versus Bellator card. So he fought Johnny Eblin on that card. Had a great first round against Johnny Eblin. In the second and third round, he took a lot of damage. He goes in, beats Alex Pelosi a few months later, and then takes another one against Jacob Nato. Jacob Nato almost cooks him, but Kansangana. He rips his head off, beats him up bad in the first round, but he survives. Then he fights Josh Silveira in a rematch. He's already fought Josh Silveira where he 50-45'd him. Now he fights him again, and you can see he's just slower in the fight. When he fought Dovlet Yagshimagurmadov, who I had Impa Kansangana, I'm the idiot, okay? It marked in 12 months the 7th time he fought in 12 months. Including 5 fights in 2023, and this was his 5th fight of 2024. 10 fights over the last 2 years, most of which he had been getting hit. It's a prize fight. That by the time he gets in against Dovlet Yagshimagurmadov, that a shot that he could probably take on most occasions, a shot that he probably would take on most occasions, folds him over because it's accumulated damage, man. You're not playing tennis. You can't just do it all the time unless you're taking 0 damage, but you're getting damaged in training. So such a catch-22. That's your little lesson for young fighters. Again, how this fight plays out, Durden wins the first round. The second round is going to be a lot closer. If Durden's cardio holds up, he's going to win this fight. Spring has the upset. If Joshua Van's able to keep him at bay, Joshua Van can squeak in the second round, and the third round's going to be Van all day. The difference for me is that Van came in with a striking background. Wrestling is the actual hole in his game. Because he's fighting so often, he's learning on the fly, but I don't know that he's made the necessary improvements. I'm just going to fly a pick on Durden. You know me. I never do that. But either live bet Joshua Van if you can see on your television that it's Durden's gassing, Durden's tiring. If Durden wins the first round and he doesn't tire, you're never going to see that plus money again, baby. So I actually think I will take Durden. Hope he wins the first and wins the second and runs away. But his ability to shoot the takedowns, hold him down, rough him up, a slow starter versus a fast starter. It does come back to the fact that it is plus money and it's not lines reversed or anything like that. If it was plus money Josh Van, maybe I'd be chasing it. It's not. It's Durden. I see path of victory for him. He's just going to have to be in shape, put in a good training camp, get a good weight cut in him, wake up that morning and eat something good and step into the cage and feel good. And you can't guarantee that from any athlete. But if I get a good version of Cody Durden versus a 17 fights in less than 4 years version of Josh Van, who's probably mentally exhausted and physically exhausted, I think it's prime for the taking. So it'll be low down this week. Don't get me wrong, but I'm going to take some flyer points here on Cody Durden.
We've got Max Griffin taking on Michael Chiesa. It's pretty much a straight pick 'em. Chiesa's the ever so slight favorite, I guess you could say. Both minuses, minus 115 currently at the time of this recording that cool bet for Chiesa, minus 105 for Griffin. I mean, it's good matchmaking in the sense that, like, Chiesa, you know, he's a broadcaster with the UFC now. Where does he struggle? He struggles against guys that have better wrestling than him. He struggles against guys who have good submission skills. Griffin doesn't really have any of that. But is Michael Chiesa too far over the hill to be really trusting him with your cold hard cash? I mean, in terms of a striking matchup, I think Griffin's got a massive advantage here. Is Griffin going to be able to stop takedown attempts from Chiesa? That's where I struggle, because, you know, you go through the history of Max Griffin, and the one that really sticks out like a sore thumb is the Dirty Bird Tim Means getting 3 takedowns against him. If Dirty Bird Tim Means is getting 3 takedowns against you, I feel like Chiesa should have a pretty good chance. I'll side with Chiesa, but it makes me sick to my stomach, because if he's not getting those takedowns, it's going to be a long night. Guy's striking really never got to a UFC level by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he's going to be able to get the takedowns. I think it's kind of like a perfect matchup for him. If he's going to beat anybody at this stage in his career, I think Griffin's one of the guys that he could do it for. So it's Chiesa for me, but I don't feel great about it. What about you?
Yeah, I actually agree. I think Michael Chiesa could make this look like the value play of the week. Like, it's a good line, and he has the capabilities of making this a seamless, effortless fight. Clean win, easy win. We all cash. We're all happy. But he's another one of these fighters, and we've discussed a number of them on this card. He's just not trustworthy anymore. He's 36 years old. Beyond him being 36, he's had a lot of injuries. He's had a nagging back problem that's been reoccurring since 2015. He's ballooned up in weight. This guy used to fight at 155. All of a sudden, his buddy quite literally rejects the weight cuts and says, "Can't do it anymore, boss." He goes up to 170. He fills out. But then his back flares up again. So he's been really dealing with life problems and physical problems, but the skill's there. It's that when you fight and you're not in shape, you're not going to give your best account of yourself. And he's kind of done that a few times. And he fought Kevin Hall, and he's in awful shape. He shot a bum takedown into a Darce choke and then quit. His fight with Vicente Luque, he took Vicente Luque down. Luque got up, took him down. He gives up his neck again and quits. And he quit both times. Even though he's a high-level black belt with excellent submission game, I think if you asked him, he would admit, my body was in bad shape. I was in bad shape. I probably shouldn't have taken the fight to begin with. Yeah, I looked for a way out. When he is in shape, I think you can really expect that hard press, gets the takedowns, very excellent top control, very heavy with his hips. You remember the fight with Neil Magny, because we lost a boatload on Neil Magny, but he can really neutralize a guy excellent. His fight with Tony Ferguson, you saw how robotic his striking is. He's not a good striker. He's low volume guy. And this is just like insultingly bad, but he averages 1.86 significant strikes landed per minute. 1.86. I don't think there's anybody on the card that's less than 2 other than Michael Chiesa. So, like, yeah, he's not going to knock a guy outstanding for the most part. And he's not going to really land a whole lot of ground and pound for the most part. It's that he needs to take you down, get into a spot, grab the submission, choke you out. His cardio over the years, the Magny fight was a 5-rounder. So at times it's been good. At times he's gassed out 2 minutes in, shoots a wonky, ill-advised takedown because his body's just not keeping up. So when you're betting money on a guy, he's not the easiest guy to bet on. But here's why I don't mind the spot for him. The UFC, they like him. He's a former Ultimate Fighter champion. He's fought all the guys that you asked him to fight. He's a broadcaster. He's probably a good company guy. They're probably realizing that he's having health issues. They're realizing the end of the road is getting near. And similar to Jim Miller, who they give a good fight to, similar to Chris Weidman, who they're giving a good fight to, I think this is a great fight. Like, Chiesa's 36, but Max Griffin's 38. So you're not fighting some up-and-comer that's going to blow his face off here. Griffin, meanwhile, has struggled with the takedown defense, as you've mentioned, namely the Tim Means fight. But beyond that, look at his last 5 fights, right? This is a rough one. He took a split decision over Neil Magny in a fight that he got taken down in. He took a split decision over Tim Means in a fight he got taken down 3 times in. He took a unanimous decision loss to Michael Morales, which he looked just vastly out of place, but Morales is 17-0, give him that. And then against Jeremiah Wells, he wins a split decision in a fight he had given 1 takedown up, and he actually got outstruck 32-26 against Wells. So he got taken down by Wells, got one of his own, landed 26 significant strikes, and squeaked out a split. Beyond that, his last 4 fights have gone to decision, and 3 of them have been by split. He also has a split decision loss to Cowboy Oliveira from 2020. Why would you bet this guy as a favorite? Like, he is prime fading for the underdog play here. For no other reason than his fights are always close. They always go to decision. Last time Griffin finished a guy was Song Kanan 3 years ago, and Ramiz Brahimaj's ear fell off, so they stopped that one. He knocked out Eryk Montalvo in 2016. So he legitimately has one knockout win in the last 8 years, no submission wins. He's not going to submit Chiesa, I really don't feel. Knocking out Chiesa, I really don't feel. So he's going to just have to pinpoint jabs from the outside, do a little bit more, land a little bit more, throw it off the takedowns, squeak by a split decision. Yeah, that's not enough for me to bet you as a favorite. Meanwhile, the flip side of that for Chiesa, if he can keep it close and competitive and keep it to a split decision type fight, I won't feel bad betting a plus money guy at that range. But I think he can mix in the takedowns, and that be the deciding factor for the judges on Griffin landed a few more standing. Chiesa got a takedown and some control time. That would be the difference. Last but not least, Max Griffin, Jeremiah Wells is a black belt, I guess. You saw he gave Griffin tons of problems. Outside of that, I don't know. Neil Magny's technically he's a black belt, but Neil Magny's story is that actual black belts submit him all of the time. And that's about it. Brahim Majo's a purple belt. Song Kanan and Carlos Condit aren't grapplers. Alex Oliveira technically is a black belt, but he was at the end of his run. Alex Morono's technically a black belt. He's just not very good. Like, I don't know that he's taken on as a clean, good jiu-jitsu guy. Whereas Michael Chiesa, he's been in there with Sean Brady as of lately. He's defeated better grapplers in the past. Overall, I think he's fought in the higher level of competition. It's that he's just untrustworthy, Paul. That's what it comes down to. I like the line. I like Michael Chiesa. When I simulate the fight in my head 1,000 times, Michael Chiesa goes out there and he's one of the good guys for us. But I'm glad it's early because I can't trust the guy. And he could very easily shit in the apple pie for no other reason than he has a back spasm and a bad weight cut. And he's 36 and he's got a job with the UFC commentating. And he just asked them for one more fight so it could be his retirement fight. And we're seeing that trend a lot more lately. The UFC's given these guys their swan song fights. Whether they win or they lose, that's entirely up to them. But to bet on it makes you feel a little wonky. But again, there will be a play and he's got to be part of the PRP. So Chiesa, and if he does what I think he's capable of doing, he's going to add an immense amount of value because he's near even, minus 130 range. That would be great, but know what you're getting yourself into, which is a tenured guy who's been fighting for over a decade, whose body's now not as responding as much as it used to. And I'm just hoping that Griffin at 38 is lost enough of a step that Chiesa at 50% can still win. That's what I'm trying to bank on this one.
Now we got Chase Hooper taking on Clay Guida. Chase Hooper, a minus 1,000 favorite. Guida can be at for plus 700. These guys had a grappling match back in 2022. Chase Hooper got a round 1, 3 minutes and 55 seconds into it. He got the calf slicer. Clay, former featherweight, older, long in the tooth. He'll be 43, I believe, at the end of the week. Chase Hooper, skinny, pencil neck, kind of looks like a dork. If you ran into him at a bar, you'd think you'd be able to knock him out, and you'd wake up probably in the hospital. He's gotten a lot of hate. Obviously, he took a lot of damage in some of his fights. Steve Garcia was able to knock him out. Guys, Steve's on a hell of a run since then.
He's tremendous.
Exactly. And we've just seen Chase kind of improve. He had a lot of hype behind him because he was, found on Contender Series, and his look, he looks like an innocent, not a guy you would ever expect to fight. Even when you see his interviews and stuff, he just doesn't seem, he doesn't have that hardened edge to him by any stretch of the imagination. It's super, super square, don't get me wrong, but Clay at this stage in his career, he has a way of finding his way into submissions, even against opponents that don't necessarily have great wrestling. Like, there was no world where he should have ever gotten to an exchange with Claudio Puelles and given up a knee bar there. Obviously, they already grappled each other. Chase got the job done there. It's a massive favorite. I don't love the money line. Don't get me wrong by any stretch of the imagination, but like Chase Hooper by submission is somewhat playable, and I intend on playing it this week. What's your take?
Yeah, I just go Chase Hooper inside the distance, whether it be submission or he just sometimes you could take a guy's back and flatten them out and then just go for the TKO. Like it'll be a slight nuance. Either he grabs the neck or he just keeps punching when the ref says defend yourself. But I just feel like he's going to win inside the distance. Hooper, I love as a bet, but at minus 1,000, yeah, what can you really get? You mentioned everyone turned on Chase Hooper, and it feels like that's the way it was going. Not me, man. I always stood by this kid's side. What you got to look at is when he was on the Contender Series, he's like 18 years old. When he when he won his UFC debut, he was, drum roll, please, 20 years old. 20 years old in 3 months. When he lost to Steve Garcia, and everyone said, this guy is an absolute bust and sucks. He's 23. It's actually a month after his 23 birthday. So what sucks about this guy? He's really, really young, fighting in the premier organization of the sport, fighting pretty good guys. And yeah, sometimes he takes too much damage. Well, Bruce Leroy's had 30 UFC fights. He's in his mid-30s. He's actually one of the more tenured guys. I think he's the most tenured guy at 145 pounds on the roster. What exactly is there to fault Chase Hooper about? Where some guys are taking too much damage, I get it. Hooper's taking too much damage, but he's not fighting all the time. He's not taking too much damage all the time. He goes to the drawing board. He fills out his frame. He has new wrinkles. And I always maintained at 145 pounds, this kid's huge. And then he wouldn't be able to stay at 145 forever. You've seen that. He's now at 55, and he's really coming into his own. So keep in mind that if you want to talk strictly jiu-jitsu, he has won the IBJJF World Championship. Strictly in jiu-jitsu, he went the distance with Renato Moicano in a grappling match. He beat Clay Guida in the grappling match you mentioned, and he's coming off a split decision loss to Aljamain Sterling in a grappling match. His match with Aljamain Sterling was at 170 pounds. His match with Clay Guida was at 175 pounds. This kid's big. This kid's got a big frame. He looks tall, skinny Michael Cera, but like Paul said, if you kick sand in this kid's face at the beach, oh, he'd be so dead.
You're in for some
he'd
trouble.
Be so dead, and you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it until you're dead. And even in that situation, you still wouldn't know it because you'd be dead. But Chase Hooper is an actual prospect. It's just he took the hard road. He didn't fight for LFA and gain regional experience for the most part. They fast-tracked him and then gave him some tough-ass fights. Keep this in mind. Loses to Steve Garcia. That fight's at 145. Then he took the grappling match against Clay Guida at 175. 30-pound difference. So at lightweight, he beats Nick Fiore. Nick Fiore is a BJJ black belt. He's a high-level BJJ black belt. People will laugh at him and say, Nick Fiore sucked. He was 0-2 in the UFC and they cut him. Yeah, that's fair. What's not fair is that they cut him. He was 0-2. You know the two losses? Nick Fiore lost to Matus Rebecki by decision, and he lost to Chase Hooper by decision, and they cut him. He's 26 years old. He went to the regional scene. He's won 3 in a row, all 3 inside the distance. He'll be back in the UFC. 100% he'll be back in the UFC. And Chase Hooper, black belt versus black belt, did an excellent job of neutralizing him. Didn't have the better wrestling than Fiore early, but he's a better grappler, and he made it work. Jordan Levitt is a high-level BJJ black belt. Yeah, what did he have for Hooper? Nothing. Effortlessly chokes him out in the first round. Clean, very clean. Did better against him than Patty Pimblett did. Takes the grappling match versus Aljamain, which he loses a split decision in a competitive match. And then Vyacheslav Borshev. Well, Fiore's a grappler. Clay Guida's a grappler. Jordan Levitt's a grappler. Aljamain Sterling's a grappler. Finally, they give him a striker. Can the kid take a punch? Can the kid strike? He drops Vyacheslav Borshev, who was probably anticipating the takedowns. His hands are low. It's a bit of a catch-22. But his striking looked a lot better. On the ground, he's relentless. He's got cardio for days. Nasty ground and pound. Nasty submission game. Chokes out Borshev in the second after a couple 10-8 rounds. Like, man. And he's still only 25 years old. So what's there not to like? Now they're running a match with Clay Guida, who's 43, grappled this kid for shits and giggles and got caught in a calf slicer less than 4 minutes into it. Oh boy, that's not looking too good. Now, where does Clay have the advantage? The wrestling. Clay is good enough wrestler that he should be able to keep Hooper off of him. And he therefore could dictate where the fight takes place. If he goes to the ground with Hooper, like he shoots the takedown, he's done. He's done. If he, for whatever reason, gets tripped up or there's a scramble that ensues or he gets swept or whatever the case may be, Hooper ends up on top of him, he's done. If he could sprawl and brawl, use his defensive wrestling to keep the fight standing, that where lies his potential path. But I just don't see it. Clay's a super low volume guy standing. His last fight with Joaquim Silva, he could have won. He just didn't do anything. Landed 43 significant strikes. Before that, Rafa Garcia, he got outstruck 141-63. He's not doing anything. His fight with Scott Holtzman, he won a split decision. 66 landed. His fight with Claudio Puelles, which is probably going to mirror image what's going to happen to him versus Hooper. fight hits the ground, he gets caught in a random ass knee bar from a kid that's half as strong as him and half as experienced as him. But it's jiu-jitsu. It's just one of those things. What I'm getting at is Clay hasn't landed over 80 significant strikes since he fought BJ Penn 5 years ago. So to just simply keep the fight standing, you're going to have to land a lot of punches on Chase Hooper, who otherwise will probably clip 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 significant strikes based on coming forward, not having to worry about the threat of Clay's big power. I think he's going to be able to not get reckless, but be a little more aggressive, eventually cause his fight to hit the ground. And then when it does shine bright. Minus 1,000 on most guys, I'm not looking to get behind it, to be honest with you. Unless it's like Bellator will do it. The guy's a 3-time All-American out of Penn State taking on a Jim Brony that they found from the streets of Oahu, who's 1-4. Like, I'm in on that. I'm in on that one. But as far as this goes, minus 1,000 against a guy with a real pulse, no, I'm not in on that at all. Clay Guida probably going to lose this fight in spectacular fashion, but minus 1,000 still seems just a little bit disrespectful. So I'm taking the inside the distance. You're saying by submission. That makes the most sense. It truthfully makes the most sense that he would probably grab the neck at some point, submit him. Clay's got something like 11 submission losses in his career. What's one more? But I would hate to be like, oh man, I'm out grappling this guy so easy that you just pin him in a bad spot and then force a stoppage. Or again, he drops Borshev. What if he drops Clay? Like, what's the difference between inside the distance and submission? Like, how far off is it?
Depends on cool, but they've got like minus 160, so like their submission prop has like moved out quite a bit. But there were like some plus 100s like earlier in the week. That's what I got a little bit of. But
if it's a huge price point, then chase the submission. But if it's not much,
minus 250
as opposed to 160. I mean, you know what? I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'd probably take the 215, but I don't want to I don't like parlaying props together, so to speak. So I don't. Well, 2 props, sure, but like you can't PRP your props, man. Trust me, you can't. I don't know that I would prop bet a Chase
cool
Hooper
bet,
inside
it's
the
minus
distance.
minus 192 for Hooper inside the distance. Him by submission is minus 154.
Yeah, okay. Honestly, for those points, yeah, I would just take the inside the distance. I wouldn't get greedy with it. I think he wins inside the distance. Submission is no doubt the most likely outcome. There's just something in the back of my head that, Clay's 43. They're not going to let him take a ton of damage. If he gets taken down, if he gives up his back, if he's fighting hands, but he's eating punches to the side of the head, we've all lost a bet that way. So I'd probably just avoid it unless it was a huge difference.
All right, Kennedy and Zechikwu takes on Lucas Brzeski, minus 588 for Kennedy. Lucas Brzeski, who was supposed to take on Taliesin Ferreira or Teixeira, Taliesin Teixeira, the LFA, like a standout LFA, absolute giant, 6'8". Writing was on the wall, like what the UFC is trying to do there. New heavyweight monster, Brazilian heavyweight monster they're bringing in. Teixeira pulls out. Kennedy, who had very light work against Chris Barnett last time out, steps up and in on short notice. Kennedy's obviously doing a heavyweight tour now. Guess he's never going back to 205. It's heavyweight at minus 588. It's hard to feel great about laying the chalk. Where are you at with this one? I refuse to get burned on on this type of spot. But Brzeski is a heavyweight, but hasn't shown crazy pop in his hands. So I can understand why Kennedy is the much more technical striker. The more volume comes from his side. But I don't know if I really want to get burned chasing this one. Where are you at?
Yeah. Listen, it's a greasy heavyweight fight to start it off. Kenny coming in on short notice, although this probably does favor him a little bit. Yeah, what can you really look to game out of it? What I will say about Kenny Ngannou is that I always thought this guy would break through at some point. He's got such a great frame for fighting. 6'5", like an 82-inch reach, very long, very proportionate, big power, training at Fortis MMA. They're adding, the required skills to be a well-rounded mixed martial artist. And he never panned out, man. He just hasn't panned out. When you talk about guys that you don't want to bet as big favorites, because He's a big favorite right now. We gotta know what we're getting ourselves into. He's not trustworthy. He gave up that triangle choke to Paul Craig in a fight he was winning. He got triangle choked in the third round. I won't say he quit, but he was winning the fight and then he lost in the third. Never a good sign. Knocked out by Da Woon Jung with a standing elbow in the first round. Knocked out by Dustin Jacoby in the first round. His fight with Aubin St. Preux was quite honestly one of the worst fights you've ever seen in your life. He loses a split decision to a 40-year-old Aubin St. Preux. There's really nothing to like about this. He's officially busted prospect. The move up to heavyweight is so intriguing to me for him because being 6'5" with his reach, he can fight at heavyweight. The thing is that at 205, he's not that fast. So these guys are way faster. Jacoby's way faster than him. Dong Woon Jung's way faster than him. The wrestlers are faster than him. They can take him down, and his limbs are too long. He's just not going to create that explosive space to get back up. He's not a natural athlete. He's just a big guy. And at 205, yeah, he lost. A heavyweight, not saying elite heavyweight, but at everything outside of the top 10, bro, it's a stick in the mud division. It's awful. Remember Justin Ledet? Justin Ledet won fights at heavyweight and could not win at 205 because heavyweight, he's carrying the speed now. He's the faster guy. And as long as you match him with crappy heavyweights, he can win. Kenny's going to get that. When he weighed in his last fight at 241 pounds, okay? So that means he was cutting 35 pounds to make 205. That's not healthy. It's not easy on anybody. And he's got to do it fight after fight after fight. Oh, he got knocked out in the first round. Oh, he's got to take another fight. Oh, he got knocked out again. Oh, his fight with Carlos Ulberg. How good did that one age? He took everything Ulberg had to throw at him. You telling me this guy's chinny? This guy can take a punch. But constantly cutting that 35 pounds, 40 pounds if you're out of shape, could catch up to you. And I feel like it was probably catching up to him. So him moving up at heavyweight, we have nothing to base it off of. They booked him against Marcos Rogério de Lima, who everybody knows my stance on that guy. Then they rebooked him with Tafa when de Lima pulled out. They booked him with Tafa. Tafa pulled out. Chris Barnett was the third guy in, coming off a massive Achilles injury that re-ruptured early in the first round. There's nothing you can take other than he looked mad comfortable, dude. Like he just looked like, this is where I was supposed to be as a 240-pound heavyweight who still got this long-ass reach, who could still fight from the outside, but he's a little bit faster. He's a little more competent. I think at the low end of heavyweight, he'll be able to go out there and beat a lot of these low-end heavyweights. And Lukas Brzezinski is exactly that. On the Contender Series, he beat Dylan Potter, okay? He went to the third round with Dylan Potter. Dylan Potter never tapped. Mark Smith was like, you tapped, bro. Watch the replay. Dylan Potter was even like, yeah, I was losing the fight, dog, but I never tapped. And he's right. He never tapped. It was a bum-ass Mark Smith call. 3 rounds it took him with Dylan Potter. Dylan Potter then lost his next 3 fights and quietly retired. Okay. Bum Contender Series win in the third round. Then he loses to Martin Buday. People say he got robbed, but he lost split. Then he fights Carl Williams, where he quite literally quit. He got taken down 8 times. He got knocked down. He gassed after 4 minutes of trying to get back up, and he looked like an absolute tub of pudding. Okay, he loses that one. Then he gets Waldo Cortez Acosta. I like Acosta. I think you like Acosta. The only knock on Cortez Acosta is he doesn't knock anybody out. He quite literally has no power. No power. Zero. He was in full mount on that Cuban judo guy or Taekwondo guy for like 12 minutes, couldn't put him away. I don't know. Just abysmal. Then he picks up his first win, his first real win against Walter Walker, Johnny's brother. Close decision, did a little bit more. Walter Walker fought the worst game plan of all times, did nothing when he got him to the ground, but he actually went 4 for 5 on takedowns and got 7.5 minutes of top control. Brzezinski did not win that fight. Walter Walker lost that fight. He fought like a complete moron and just gave it away. He just gave it away to Brzezinski in a very winnable spot. So now we got Brzezinski. He's not a good striker. He's not a good wrestler. He's got suspect cardio. His get-up game's not very good. And he takes on Mick Parkin, who knocks him out in 3.5 minutes. So he's effectively 1-4 in the UFC. Of those 4 losses, he's been knocked out twice in 3.5 minutes or less. And he got absolutely dominated in the wrestling department against Carl Williams. And the Martin Buday fight, he couldn't really keep his back off the cage. I mean, he outstruck him, sure, but it was just such an ugly fight. He's not good. There's nothing about him that screams good. So now how does he match up versus Kenny and Njoku? Okay, fair. Well, he's 6'4" with a 78-inch reach, and he's been using that. But now he's taking on somebody that's 6'5" with an 83-inch reach. So Kenny's got a 5-inch reach advantage over him, and he's taller. So him using that long man game, it ain't going to work here. And Kenny's a lot faster than him, so he's going to beat him with a punch. And Kenny's got some low-key wrestling chops that don't work on good guys that he can use against Przewski. And as far as the cardio goes, Kenny's not cutting 35 pounds anymore. He's going to have a cardio advantage. I think he's got advantages pretty much everywhere. I think Kenny goes out there and romps him. If I was setting this line, I wouldn't have set it this deep, but I would have been thinking the exact same way of where this thing moved. I think Kenny kills him, but it's a shitty heavyweight fight, Paul. So what are you getting yourself into? You can win it. You can lose it. I get it. That's the nature of the beast. The two hardest divisions in men's MMA are heavyweight and flyweight. We're opening the card up with the Gracie heavyweight fight. We're ending the card with a world-class flyweight fight. Sometimes it's just like the confidence is not necessarily there. They're going to be great fights. They're entertaining fights, but where's that confidence? Where's that Where's that he's going to go there and beat this guy up? Kennedy, I feel like, could do that. But there's so many red flags. And, this will be the second time I mentioned it on the card, but that's what this show is. Kennedy should win and make it look easy, but he's second fight at heavyweight, now fighting up 35 pounds heavier, not on a great run at 205. Chris Barnett, that's not even a real win. So, what do you know about him? Nothing. He's untrustworthy. Clay Guida, Cody Durden, Chris Weidman and Eryk Anders, Themba Gorimbo. There's a lot of guys that you kind of just got to take a leap of faith on if you're backing them, that this guy should be good. I hope he'll be good. But will he? That's any man's guess, right? That comes up to them and their mentality comes Saturday night. So, unfortunately, it is what it is, Paul. All we can do is get two guys that are definitely going to win and put them at the top. And then hopefully get two more that are probably going to win and put them on the second line. And then, God willingly, get two more guys that should win and put them on the third line. And then fourth, fifth line, sixth line. You're doing a little bit of praying. But, you do the research. You talk to your friends. You trade opinions with guys like you. That's what I do to prep up. And then come fight time, it's like, what more can I do? I just got to hope for the best, right?
100%. Let's cook. Let's cook with CoolBet. Remember, promo code DOG-OR-PASS to get a match up to $200 on your first deposit. Roll over 3x, so $600 worth of bets, and whatever money is left is all yours. All right, Cody, where are we going here? Where are your strongest thoughts, strongest leans? Cooking up a little parlay, going to get a bit of a boost on the go for everyone who has a CoolBet account. Canadians, obviously, only. Sorry to our American fans, but maybe you can move on up here. Where are you starting here? Where do you feel best about this card, Code?
Yeah, I also apologize to our European fans and our Australian fans as well. And I don't know that anybody else watches us, but to you guys, thank you for watching us. And yeah, hopefully CoolBets eventually gets everywhere because it's a pretty cool site, to be honest with you. And the guys running it, yeah, we've never had this much investment in people want us not to push out content. They want us to do well. They want us to, grow our following. Like, they're doing a really good job. So shout out to those guys. Let's make it happen this week. This is not necessarily in order, which will probably throw my ADD mind off a little bit. But yeah, I can't put Weidman on any type of parlay with real money on it. Moving down, Kenny Jakwu, 588, seems a little bit steep. Bryce Mitchell, I'm just not betting that myself. Vicente Luque, I think he gets the job done, but so many question marks. Pantoja will get played at some point, but a flyweight main event, he wouldn't be on my top line. Gane's on my top line. So he's somebody that I'm looking to build around. Reyes, I can't necessarily put Reyes on the top line right now, maybe, but he's going to be within the first two. So Reyes, Pantoja, Gane, at least put that for the time being.
Okay.
And then give me some Hooper action.
With Hooper, okay. The four of those together pay $155.
Plus 155. Minus 155.
Plus 155.
Yeah, okay. So the way you would see it on Saturday morning was I would put Chase Hooper. Oh, I can't put Chase Hooper because he's minus 1,000. You can't put him at the top. And then Reyes, I just don't have that level of confidence. Gane's one of my top guys. And whereas I said Pantoja, I wouldn't because he's the main event. He creates the hedge out. So my top ticket in this instance would be Pantoja and Gane straight up. That second line is now going to include Hooper and Dominick Reyes, like Paul's saying, a plus 155. Let me see the list again. I'll just give you two more and then. The
You
next two
you
that I
like
would like the
Sterling.
most.
You like
Yeah,
Sterling.
I
He's a
do.
big
Well,
dog. It's tough to add that to a parlay.
give me some Bryan battle on this. Give me some Bryan battle and some Shavkat Rakhmonov.
All right, now we're cooking with Gab. What about the fight doesn't go to decision with Choi versus Landwehr? Where are your thoughts on that?
I think I prefer fight does go the distance for Anders versus Weidman, if we're being honest with you. But this is not including any props. So that 6 straight up would give you your 373. If you don't want to get greedy, but you say, Cody, just give me one underdog on my 6. I got my six favorites. You gave me your 2 most confident, 2 guys that were big favorites, 2 guys that are moderate size favorites, and that one underdog. I put Sterling on that, which would take your plus 353 to 10-1, I'm gonna guess, but
Yeah,
Paul can tell you the exact number.
I don't know if Coolbet's given us a 10-1 or a 10-1 ticket here.
I'm just saying in the general, because again, you could be watching from anywhere. This is for the boost. You take these 6.
So is this what you want to go with for the boost?
Is it 6 maximum on it?
I don't know. They didn't really give us parameters, but I don't want to like go too.
Okay, well,
I don't want to go too out left field, and then they're like, we can't offer that because
just lock in those 6. Lock in those 6. No need to get greedy. Aljamain would be your dog, but yeah, where you're looking for 6 safe guys, these would be the 6 of the 14 fights. This is your 6 safest.
All right.
Are they 100% money in the bank? Take it to the doctor right now. I'm saying, yeah, baby, let's do it. What better way to hit a PRP than the last pay-per-view of the year on a 14 fight card? Unlikely to some. We just need some bounce of good luck. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Appreciate all the viewers. Appreciate all the support. Appreciate all just 2024 has been a difficult year in many ways. New kid on the way and new title sponsor and lots of traveling around and moving pieces. But it was a rewarding year at the end of the day. So this is not our last show of the year. We do have one next week. And maybe if Paul feels up to it, maybe we do some type of like holiday festive, we'll get hammered on the show, have a good time type of thing. I would be down. But yeah, for the most part, nothing's better than a winning night. So let's go and provide that this Saturday, and then we'll worry about next week then.
Yes, sir. All right. We're just about out of time. But before we go, hit him with the PRP.
Hit him with the PRP. We're going with Alexandre Pantoja, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ciryl Gane. Kron Gracie is quite literally the PRP pick. Yeah, grain of salt on that one. Pass if you want, but I just can't get behind Bryce training himself. And thinking the world's flat, dude. Like, that's just 2 bad decisions. I can't get behind it. Nate Landwehr, lots of bad decisions, but my kind of guy. I will take him. Dominick Reyes, I'm going to take. Vicente Luque, dog number 1. Aljamain Sterling, dog number 2. Bryan Battle, Chris Weidman, was a dog, not so much anymore. I'm going to take Cody Durden, dog number 3. Michael Chiesa, Chase Huber, and Candy Njoku. So, I don't know. On one hand, people will be like, man, you take a lot of favorites. On the other hand, it's like, damn, those dogs have no shot. So you can't get it both ways, right? I need my favorites to win. I need my random underdogs to get the job done. But I'm excited for this card. So if anybody has any questions, concerns, thoughts, leave them in the comment section or hit me up on Twitter, and I will do my best to get back to it. Paul, my man, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, buddy. And yeah, make sure you go up to CoolBet, see what type of bonus they're going to do. Cody's going to be sending this over to them shortly, and hopefully it's up there by the time people start watching. But anyway, that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed this show. For producer Jared and Cody Saftik, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.
Oh!